Are we ready for prayers? Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Members of Council, as we meet for prayers on this St Patrick's Day, congratulations to Council members who are particularly celebrating today. And as we come together as Council tonight, let us pray. Lord God, we give you thanks and praise for the freedom and safety in which we live, for peaceful homes, for justice, order in our society, for standards of truth and honour, and for all our rights and privileges. We pray for those whose work it is to maintain and extend these blessings, especially in this council, its elected members and officers. And we pray for all who have authority and responsibility in administering the law and maintaining the peace, in education and the care of children, in planning and building, and in providing for both work and leisure. We pray that you will direct and use their influence, that together we may build communities and neighbourhoods whose life does honour to your name by caring for others. Amen.
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 Good evening and thank you, Canon Bracegirdle, members of the Council. It's time to start the meeting of the full Council. Mrs Ridge, could you please confirm whether we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, we haven't received any apologies for absence.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Linda Thomas and I'm the Mayor of Bolton for this municipal year. Could I, as has been happening over the past year, just send our condolences to all the families of those who've lost loved ones over this last year due to COVID, and hoping that those still in hospital with it get well soon. A little piece of good news though, we'd like to also send congratulations to Councillor Paul Sanders and his family on the birth of his second daughter, Molly May, which is something lovely to celebrate, and I think we all need a little bit of good news, so congratulations, Paul. And to those councillors who are not standing in the local elections, I'm sure we would all like to thank you for your time, your dedication to the role, and we wish you all well in the future. Are there any declarations of interest?
Councillor Morgan has indicated in chat that he has a declaration of interest.
Right, Councillor Morgan, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I declare an interest in Councillor Mrs Elaine Sherrington's motion with regards care workers' pay, and I will leave the meeting if we manage to get to it.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Chief Exec.
Madam Mayor, the next item of business is to receive a petition from Councillor Donahee regarding a pedestrian crossing at Thicketford Road.
Madam Mayor, could I humbly present this petition on behalf of the residents of Thicketford Road and Crompton Way and the surrounding districts for crossing an additional set of lights at a very dangerous crossing on behalf of my constituents in that area. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Donahee. We'll ensure this gets to the correct officers. Thank you. Chief Exec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The petition will be passed to the Director of Police Services for report to be prepared for the relevant Executive Cabinet member. Now, Madam Mayor, the next item of business is to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 17th of February 2021.
Are these approved?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thank
Aye.
you. Chief Exec.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, the next item of business is to consider a motion in the name of Councillor Greenhalgh regarding decisions using the special urgency provisions. No decisions have been taken in the last quarter using these provisions, so we will move to consider the motion in the name of Councillor Greenhalgh regarding amendments to the scheme of delegation.
Madam Mayor, can I propose that the amendment to the Council scheme of delegation for 2020-21 as circulated be approved?
Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I formally second the motion as set out on the order paper regarding the scheme of delegation?
Is this agreed?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Chief Exec.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next item of business is to consider recommendations from the Cabinet regarding the Clean Air Plan.
I'm not sure about that.
Members, can I ask you to mute your microphones, please, if you're not participating? I'll just repeat that because we lost some of that. Madam Mayor, the next item of business is to consider the recommendations from the Cabinet regarding the Clean Air Plan. I would like to remind members that this motion is to agree to the establishment of joint committees to administer any final plan agreed and to appoint a representative and substitute to those committees. It is not a motion about the plan itself.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I propose to agree to the establishment of joint committees and to delegate to those committees the authority's functions as set out in the report to the Cabinet on the 8th of March regarding clean air at paragraph 8.5 and the terms of reference set out in Appendix 6, to agree to appoint the Executive Cabinet Member for Environmental Service Delivery to sit on both committees for purposes as set out in the report at paragraph 8.5, to agree to appoint the Executive Cabinet Member for Children's Services as a substitute for both committees for the same purposes. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Cox. Councillor Cox.
I'm here, Madam Mayor. I'm just waiting for the red box.
Oh, sorry. I thought you
Right,
hadn't heard me. Sorry.
No, thanks. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to formally second the motion as set out on the order paper regarding the establishment of joint committees regarding clean air.
Hang on. The motion is before council. It's not coming on the red light. No red. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. The red light was taking a long time. The motion is before council and open to debate. There's no one indicating they wish to speak. Do we need to go to the vote then straight away? Yeah. So can we go to the vote then, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a vote, named vote. So here we go. Councillor Baines.
For.
Councillor Connor.
For.
Councillor Cox.
For.
Councillor Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Dean.
For.
Councillor Fairclough.
For.
Councillor Galloway.
For.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
For.
Councillor Haslam.
For.
Councillor Hewitt.
For.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Muslim.
For.
Councillor Radcliffe.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
For.
Councillor Warren.
For.
Councillor Waters.
For.
Councillor Abdullah.
4.
Councillor Adia. Councillor Adia. I'll come back. Councillor Ayub.
4.
Councillor Donahee.
4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Councillor Howarth.
4.
Councillor Ibrahim.
4.
Councillor Karam.
4.
Councillor McKeon.
4.
Councillor Mistry.
4.
Councillor Morris.
4.
Councillor Murray. Councillor Murray. Councillor Peel.
4.
Councillor Sherrington.
4.
Councillor Sylvester.
4.
Councillor Thomas. Councillor Zaman.
4.
Councillor Adia. Okay, Councillor Murray. Okay, I'm going to move on. Councillor Bagnall. Councillor Exley-Fallon. She's not on. Okay. Councillor Hayes.
4.
Councillor McGeehan.
4.
Councillor Newell.
4.
Councillor Beavers.
4.
Councillor Wilkinson.
4.
Councillor Flitcroft.
4.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Sanders.
4.
Councillor Weatherby.
4.
Councillor Darvish.
4.
Councillor Ishmael.
4.
Councillor McMulkin.
4.
Councillor Allen.
4.
Councillor Fletcher.
4.
Councillor Parkinson.
4.
Councillor Brady.
4.
Councillor Wright.
4.
Councillor Gibbon.
4.
Councillor Hornby.
4.
Councillor Bullock.
4.
Councillor Heslop.
4.
Chief,
Yes.
Councillor Murray has indicated in chat that she's in favour of the motion as well, just so that you,
Lovely.
for the record.
That's very helpful. Thank you for that. So the motion is carried, councillors. So the next item of business is considering a motion. Sorry, I'll start again. Yeah. Thank you. The motion is carried. Madam Mayor, the next item of business is to consider a motion in the name of Councillor Greenhalgh regarding the joint development plan. Once again, I would like to remind members that this is a motion establishing a joint committee and agreeing the council's representatives on that committee, and not about the joint development plan itself.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to formally move to approve a new joint committee under Part 6 of the Local Government Act 1972, along with Bury Council, Manchester City Council, Oldham Council, Rochdale Council, Salford, Tameside, Trafford and Wigan. It delegates authority to the Joint Committee to prepare, adopt and implement a joint development plan document to cover strategic policies including housing and employment land requirements as appropriate, strategic site allocations and greenbelt boundary amendments and associated infrastructure across the 9 districts insofar as such matters are executive functions. And to agree the district lead member, Councillor Hewitt, for the Joint Committee and a nominated Deputy Councillor Cox to attend and vote as necessary. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I think it's gone straight to council. Sorry, I'm sorry. It's gone straight to you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I've got the red box, so I'll chat while I've got it. And can I formally second the motion set out on the order paper regarding the new joint committee regarding a joint development plan? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The motion, it's not coming up red. Can they still hear me? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I didn't know if you could still hear me or not. The motion is before council and open to debate. And I have Councillor Wilkinson who wishes to speak first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just in relation to the motion as stated on the order paper in part 2, I was wondering if any clarification could be given around the point made about strategic site allocations and greenbelt boundary amendment, if I can get the word in. Obviously, to someone like myself as a West Orton member, that does have considerable concerns with the 500 acres of the Wingates, Foregates area included in the previous GMSF, which is Greenbelt, whether the proposal is to change Greenbelt in that location. And also in the previous GMSF, there was a remark, a small paragraph in relation to another Greenbelt site, which is the Bolton estate, where the council is still committed to the Fantasyland golf course. The other point which I would like to raise is that in the previous GMSF, there was a remark made about the conversion of the Ditchers Farm site in Wingates to Greenbelt. And the leader of the council may or may not be aware that there is in fact a planning application today to start nibbling already at the Ditchers Farm site before the statement is even got at a previous preliminary meeting. So I was wondering if the leader of the council could give an indication as to what how secure the Greenbelt actually is in West Orton. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, could either the leader or Councillor Cox, would either of you like to make a comment on what Councillor Wilkinson just said? Yeah. The leader's indicating.
Well,
sorry, Madam Mayor.
I'm happy to make a comment, but I think we're in a debate, aren't we?
Yeah, thank you, David.
Okay. Well, we'll continue the debate. We'll
obviously.
continue the debate then, and then we'll have a think about how we deal with it. The next person that's indicated is Councillor Peel.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I mean, obviously, as Councillor Greenhouse, the mover of the motion, he will have a right to reply to any questions that's posed. I hadn't planned speaking on this. I thought, as the Chief Exec made clear, this is more of a procedural motion to go on to the next stage, but Councillor Wilkinson has spoken on some of the details. It is worth mentioning that obviously the Labour group is supportive of this. It was the Labour group under the previous leadership of our now current mayor who established quite a good deal for this borough, the envy of many other boroughs in Greater Manchester. And Stockport has now pulled out because of political machinations by the Lib Dem group in Stockport, and I think that is a real pity. It doesn't scupper the GM plan. It leaves the remaining nine authorities to move ahead with this. We know that it would be absolutely suicidal for Bolton not to be part of this plan. We are a net gainer. There are other boroughs in net gainer of Greenbelt. There are other boroughs in Greater Manchester who are taking excess housing allocations from Bolton. They're actually taking extra themselves. And what's going to happen with Stockport is they're going to have to find more housing stock now that they're not part of the GM plan. If this plan is delayed or scuppered any further, then we really will see an escalation of what Councillor Greenhouse is concerned about, which is planning by appeal. Without us having an adequate and robust plan in place as soon as possible, then this borough really will be at the mercy of the developers, the like of which we have not seen before. So it is really important that we move on to the next stage. Thank you, members, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. Nobody else has indicated they wish to speak. So does the leader wish to have a right to reply? Okay, carry on.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I mean, first of all, just to give a very technical answer to Councillor Wilkinson, in that the committee has, this is the remit of the committee is listed and what they will be discussing and what that committee's purpose is to address. And that is set down as part of the remit of that committee moving forward, just as happens and taken place before. I do agree totally with Councillor Peel in his examination of where we are, and certainly in terms of West Horton, and I think we've said before, I realise the Wingates area is very contentious and controversial and has opposition to it in West Horton, and I know that there are great advocates of it from all parties in finding the best solution and working forward to look at solutions for that area and for that site. However, and I've said it before in other committees, and I will say it again, the deal that we have for Bolton and the deal that Councillor Peel quite rightly said was brokered predominantly by the last administration. It is a very, very, very good deal for Bolton in terms of the incursion or lack of incursion into greenbelt land for housing development, and the option, which I'll not say is proposed by the Liberal Democrats, but is certainly in a sense because they have voted against and spoken against it, would put the greenbelt land in areas like West Horton in increased jeopardy, especially as we've seen over recent months, planning being decided at appeal, overriding our decisions made locally, and developers gone to appeal. And because we've not got a plan in place, it has been allowed and by the inspectorate. So there is a real issue here that move forward with the existing. Of course, it will be in the remit, and if there are opportunities to look at redesignation, then that is what this committee has as a remit to do. But this is an excellent deal for Bolton. I repeat that. If people are concerned about the protection of the green belt, this is the deal that needs their support for Bolton. We have by far, has been said, the best deal of anyone in the whole conurbation of the GM, and other authorities have taken our degree of our housing supply. So the protection of our green belt, which I know is paramount in many people's mind, this is the way forward. So this is just the first step. Anyway, that vote on that final document will come back to this council. This, as the chief said earlier, is just a vote on the establishment of the joint committees and to start the process of moving this forward. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Greenwald. The Chief Executive will now take a named vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So here we go, councillors. Councillor Baines.
4.
Councillor Connor.
4.
Councillor Cox.
4.
Councillor Cunningham.
4.
Councillor Dean.
4.
Councillor Fairclough.
4.
Councillor Galloway.
4.
Councillor Greenharsh.
4.
Councillor Haslam.
4.
Councillor Hewitt.
4.
Councillor Morgan.
4.
Councillor Muslim.
4.
Councillor Radcliffe.
4.
Councillor Walsh.
4.
Councillor Warren.
4.
Councillor Waters.
4.
Councillor Abdullah.
4.
Councillor Adia.
4.
Councillor Ayub.
4.
Councillor Donahee.
4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Councillor Howarth.
4.
Councillor Ibrahim.
4.
Councillor Karam.
4.
Councillor McKeon.
4.
Councillor Mistry.
4.
Councillor Morris.
4.
Councillor Murray. We'll check on the chat. Councillor Peel.
4.
Councillor Sherrington.
4.
Councillor Sylvester.
4.
Councillor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Zaman.
4.
Councillor Bagnall.
4.
Councillor Hayes.
4.
Councillor McGeehan.
4.
Councillor Newell.
4.
Councillor Vevers.
4.
Councillor Wilkinson.
4.
Councillor Flitcroft.
4.
Councillor Pattison.
4.
Councillor Sanders.
4.
Councillor Weatherby.
4.
Councillor Darvish.
4.
Councillor Ishmael.
4.
Councillor McMulkin.
4.
Councillor Allen. Councillor Allen. I'll come back in a second. Councillor Fletcher.
4.
Councillor Parkinson.
4.
Councillor Brady.
4.
Councillor Wright.
4.
Councillor Gibbon.
4.
Councillor Hornby.
4.
Councillor Bullock.
4.
Councillor Heslop.
4.
And Councillor Allen.
4.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Thank you. The motion is...
Just for the record, Chief, sorry,
No,
Councillor
apologies.
Murray has confirmed 4 in chat. Apologies.
No, thank you, Helen, for that. So the motion is carried. The next, Madam Mayor, the next item of business is to consider a motion in the name of Councillor Dean regarding committee membership.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you,
Councillor
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, can I move that the changes to committee memberships and appointments to outside bodies be approved? Thank you.
Councillor Curran.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I formally second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Is this agreed?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Madam Mayor, the next item of business is questions under Standing Order 9(a).
The first question on the order paper is from the Councillor Hornby for the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Council. The last 12 months have been challenging, to say the least, and we owe a great deal of thanks to the hard work that has taken place from this Council and our partners in health, especially behind the scenes with Helen, Laurie and others. The speed and professionalism has far exceeded expectations as we see the infection rates across the borough dropping. And we can see a light now at the end of the tunnel at long last, and some normality is starting to take place. Does the leader agree with me that if anyone had any doubt whatsoever about leaving the EU was the right thing to do or not, the EU's handling of the vaccine rollout was proof that we made the right decision? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor, Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And in a short answer, I'm going to go on a bit longer, Councillor Hornby, but absolutely, totally agree. And thank you very much for the question. I think the strapline was take back control, wasn't it? And if there was ever a finer example of when we needed control. It was the way we've handled our vaccination rollout in comparison with the way the EU has handled the vaccination rollout. I think, as you say, nothing could be clearer and a greater example of just exactly the bureaucracy and the red tape that surrounds the EU, which makes its processes very often not fit for purpose. I think it's been reported this week, hasn't it, about many EU countries actually doing backroom deals, actually trying to get the vaccines into their countries through other methods rather than go through the EU system, such is their frustration. And to be honest, wasn't that always the case? During our period of time when we were in the EU, where we were often seen to be obeying the rules rigidly while seeing others flaunt it and get away with it, and we ended up being penalised. So I completely agree with you, Councillor Hornby. I think it is a victory for us as a British people. I think it's a victory for democracy, the fact that we listened to the people had their say, and what's more important, dare I say it, we got it done and we delivered it and delivered the will of the people. So it's a victory not only for us as we come out of recovery and can actually make decisions for ourselves away from the shackles of the EU, but make decisions for ourselves that suit us as a country as we make our own way out of recovery. So completely agree with your comment and thank you very much for the question.
Hear, hear.
Next question is from Councillor Evans.
Just waiting for it to go red. Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. The reason I brought this question to full council is that there are two main aims. One was to make members aware of what has gone wrong, and two, to prevent future situations arising and to tighten the loopholes. Initially, I'll sort of give you the background, and obviously I'll throw the question in. Contacted by a resident, we organised a site meeting, and to my surprise, I found out with this particular issue that 2 ward councillors had already been involved for the last 2 to 3 years, and unfortunately no progress had been made. And it was out of sheer desperation this resident contacted me to see if we could make some progress. So we organised a site meeting, and it became quite obvious to me, because I have done the odd bit of negotiating, that this was a stalemate. Nobody was going anywhere with it. A lot of posturing going on, a lot of people not really getting to the root cause of the problem. There were a number of parties involved. There was ward councillors, including myself. There were council officers from 2 departments, highways and planning, and there was also the contractor. Key word in this instance. So what I'd like to do by presenting this question to the leader of the council is sort of draw a distinction between what people had previously assumed was agreement, when actually it was a presentation at a public meeting. As far as I'm concerned, that's not a contract. That loophole needs tightening up, and that's the direction we as a local authority should be heading in. It's completely unsatisfactory to me that residents were left for 3 years on a road that looks like the Battle of the Somme. And when I further inspected the road, it's the whole road, not just a section. So without further ado, Madam Mayor, I'd like to present the question to the leader of the council as it appears on the order paper. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Leader of the council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm always happy to intervene with these. You needn't have waited actually 3 weeks, Councillor Evans, if there's something that is a particular issue or there is stalemate. I mean, I'm always reminded of these situations. I'm surprised that your leader kind of allowed this to come to council, really. If I had money for every time Councillor Peel reminded us when he was an exec member of bringing complicated casework, things that could be decided out of council, these questions would be full every week. We've all got cases in our wards, I'm sure, that are hard work and need a lot of officer and departmental inclusion and are on occasion very difficult to resolve, but you work at it and you bring in those agencies. So I'm surprised that the Councillor Peel has allowed you to bring what I know he will regard as casework, and yes, complicated casework, but even so, casework. So I'm, you need to wait 3 weeks to bring it to council. You could have brought it or brought it to my attention or the exec member's attention to look at what steps could be done to resolve it. It is a complicated case. The development site on Park Road, Little Lever, has a section 38 highways development agreement in place for the new roads under construction. And in addition, where connections have been made for services in the existing highway, permits have been sought, approved and managed in accordance with the Greater Manchester Road Activities Permit Scheme, which controls the works and the reinstatement. So I'm sure you'll know all this because I'm sure you've done all the background, right? But beyond the affected area of connections, the developer has offered to carry out some further repairs to the carriageway. They are, however, under no obligation to do so and are unwilling to go further as requested by local ward members, and there are no legal powers available to enforce that. And whilst we accept that more traffic on a road due to construction can accelerate deterioration, this is legally classed as fair wear and tear, as the vehicles are road legal and entitled to use the public highway. So the burden of premature maintenance falls on the Highway Authority or the council. And with limited funds available for maintenance, a significant backlog of highway deterioration, a managed maintenance regime which reflects priority need has to apply. So ward members have had first-hand experience of making some of these tough decisions through the highway investment programme, of which in Little Lever, as you know, you had £600,000, and further work also could be carried out on this road as and when funding becomes available and priority position warrants it. There are highway schemes which ward members have identified and are still yet to begin. So it's not too late if ward members still would prefer to prioritise this road to ask for this work to be considered instead of one of the other schemes if members would prefer this. So the whole point of the £600,000 was for ward members to have local determination and decision making on their own areas. If you have a stalemate on this road, then you have an opportunity now to revisit your allocation and to adjust it and include this in your repairs. And I think if that is as keen as all three of you and you can come to an agreement, that I think is going to be the way forward for you. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question is Councillor Peel to the Leader of the Council.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to take advice from Councillor Greenhalgh about questions after we all witnessed the mutual loving between himself and Councillor Hornby a minute ago. I won't read out the full text of this question because it is long, but it's importantly long because there's quite a number of key issues in it. But I will give a bit of preamble to perhaps encourage Councillor Greenhalgh.
Councillor Peel, could I just ask
you
just to hold? Can you hear me?
I can.
Somebody has just raised a point of order, and the Borough Solicitor just alerted me to it.
Councillor Evans has said point of order.
Right, Councillor Evans, would you like to speak? What point of order is it, please?
Well, I'd like the question answered, please. The question wasn't answered.
I'm afraid that's not a... I'm afraid that's not a point of order, Councillor Evans. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, sorry. Councillor Peel, I do apologise. Would you like to continue?
That's fine. It's fine. I think Councillor Evans may not be the only disappointed Councillor, tonight. So there are some very important points in this question, but I need to let Councillor Greenhalgh know that there are some elements of this question that I'm aware of. I'm aware that 15 councillors were consulted across the relevant wards, but only 2 expressed that they were against the scheme. I'm also very much aware, and I understand that the programme did require a quick decision, but I personally have never known such a large piece of highways work to take place that didn't require the need of a formal decision-making process. And in this age of almost instant meetings via Teams, it's not beyond the wit of man to take it through a formal process in an open and transparent way. Because when I first saw the story in the Bolton News from Councillor Morgan, I spent ages trying to find the actual decision, and it's not there in council records. I'm also aware that Councillor Haslam, as the exec member, has been all over the council website exalting the virtues of this scheme. But what I'm not aware of is if the leader does decide to rip out all of the current works, how much this will cost the taxpayers of Bolton. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. Thank you, Councillor Peel. Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I certainly don't want to be accused of not answering questions again, and Councillor Peel does ask a number of questions in his within his question, which I do want to be very thorough and answer. I don't want to be accused again of not answering questions, but some he's answered for himself. So whether he's found out the answer since he submitted the question to some of his own questions, but I am intending to go through them because he's asked them on the order paper. So he asks, was there not a formal decision-making meeting held to approve these works? So with regard to, so just a bit, first of all, there's a bit of background in relation to the Emergency Active Travel Scheme on Chorley Road and the associated funding provision. I'm sure you'll be aware that the government's Active Travel Fund is intended to support local transport authorities in creating, cycling and walking facilities, and this funding has been provided in 2 tranches. It is also important to note that this money is only available for these schemes. So when we get into the realms of why couldn't the council have spent this on something else, it wasn't council money. This is money that was sent to the GM local authority, GM conurbation, and administered through the GM, ring-fenced only for this purpose. So when people say to you, oh, you should have spent it on potholes, or you should have spent it, that might be a matter of opinion, and it won't be far probably different from many members in this chamber. But in actual fact, this was only money available for this purpose. And Tranche 1 supported, of which Chorley Road was one, supported the installation of temporary projects for the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is what it was. It was a temporary project. Similarly to, as Councillor Peel will be very well aware of the process, similar to when we do experimental orders, the order gets placed first and the consultation takes place after. So, and that was what the Tranche 1 was, which Chorley Road scheme was part of. Tranche 2, which the support, the creation of longer term projects. So in the answer to the first question that Councillor Peel asked in regard to Tranche 1, which is the temporary, Councillor Peel will recall, or might recall, that the timescales for the bid process for the Emergency Active Travel Fund were very limited. That was no fault of this council. They were very limited. The bid was submitted by the combined authority on behalf of the region, and the decisions were made at the combined authority, approved within the minutes of the combined authority. So that is where the decision was taken, and those minutes, as you'll know, are readily available. Answer 2, why was public consultation not carried out in the first place before works commenced? I've explained that it was the temporary scheme, and the temporary scheme was very clear in the timescale and the format of it and the criteria, in that the schemes were created first and then consultation, because they were a direct reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic. Just want to make clear that overall not individual schemes, but overall a consultation had taken place. So prior to submitting potential schemes for inclusion, so this isn't consultation on individual schemes, but on whether the whole schemes as a whole, Bolton had undertaken a web-based consultation through the Commonplace Community Engagement Platform to identify the routes the public thought would be suitable for improved walking and cycling activities, and that is where Chorley New Road was identified as the highest ranked route, along with, I have to say, such committees as the Active Travel Forum, which Councillor Peel will be familiar with, where that has Labour Party representation. So at that stage, that could have been fed back by your person who sits formally on the Active Travel Forum. Question 3, was Councillor Morgan consulted as a councillor for an affected ward? Yes, he was. He expressed concerns. He was against it, but he was prepared to go with the majority view. And as you say, when we set out the consultation, the 3 Smithills ward councillors were in favour. We did not have responses from any of the Halliwell councillors, but it was assumed, and it was said in the email, that no responses would assume that you had no problem with the proposals. We didn't have official responses from her. We did from Smithills, but the councillors, but not from Halliwell councillors. So, but that was an assumption made then that they did not have a problem with it.
Leader, could you draw to a close, please? You've had
Yes,
5 minutes.
I will just try and get to the end. And quite at the end, we're very much aware as administration that the active travel schemes, whilst intended to support recovery, may well divide opinion. The answer in the long term is we are listening to the residents. We're having the consultation now. If the consultation says that the residents do not wish to have those ones, then we will act and we will remove them because we respect the decision of our residents. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Leader. Councillor Murray, question for the Leader. Right, Councillor Murray, we can see you now. So if you want to ask your question. Can you unmute? She has done. Oh, sorry. Sorry, are you having problems? Councillor Murray, would you be in agreement with Councillor Peel asking your question? Is that okay? I'm sorry about the technical problems. Do apologise. Councillor Peel, would you like to ask Councillor Murray's question, please?
Quickly find it. Just waiting for it to go live, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I'll ask the question. Councillor Murray would have loved to have asked this question. As you know, it was Councillor Murray's motion last January, and it is something that all members will be aware that Councillor Murray is very passionate on this. So I will ask the question as on the order paper. The Leader will note in January 2020, the Council unanimously passed a resolution that all members must undertake annual mandatory training in both CSE and their roles as corporate parents. Council further resolved that untrained members cannot sit on licensing committee, children's and adult scrutiny committee, cabinet, nor any PDG or other body that could feasibly deal with children's issues. I accept that officer capacity has been impacted by the pandemic, but the Leader will also note that the ability to do online training has been made much easier with the new technology that we all now use on a day-to-day basis. Will the Leader therefore please inform Council as to when this mandatory training will commence? The Leader and other members will note that the committees that I mentioned have met many times. I've not been through all the minutes, but feasibly some of them will have dealt with children's issues, whereby the CFC and the corporate parenting training would have assisted them greatly in understanding what can be quite complex issues. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank the leader in advance for his answer.
Thank you, Councillor Peel, for stepping in. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is a really important point, and it was, as Councillor Peel has said, unanimously approved when it was debated at Council. It is an important. I think we as members, I'm not saying we underestimate the pressure and capacity issues that the pandemic has brought, and this is in no way meant to be in any way an excuse. It's something that we as administration have raised, and I know the officers have done their very best to try and accommodate. But they have been delayed, these plans to roll out the mandatory safeguarding training. I think it's also important to note that by members that the new statutory guidance for Hackney and private hire vehicle licensing issued by the Department for Transport in July 2020 requires members to undertake a comprehensive and prescriptive programme of training in relation to their roles as members of the Council's Licensing and Environmental Regulation Committee, which includes safeguarding. So discussions are taking place with colleagues in committee admin, member services and children's services to determine the best and most effective way to deliver this training given the current restrictions, and also bearing in mind that we may have a different set of councillors on those committees with different makeups come May. But it is an important, we have raised it, we are on it, officers are aware that it is to be treated with some urgency, and I thank Councillor Murray for the question, and I know she cares very much about this, having sat with her for many years on licensing, and I thank you very much for the question.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question is in the name of Councillor McKeon.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, the executive member and I have been on the licensing committee for a long time. Councillor Firkoff for far longer than I. And both of us recognise the complexity of some of the cases that have to be dealt with and the very long, complicated and involved agendas that sometimes arise. And for many of us, it was very important that there were subcommittees, traffic subcommittee and sensitive cases subcommittee, that were able to take some of the burden from the main committee. So I was amazed to hear that the sensitive cases committee particularly was to be abolished, because that committee enabled witnesses in particular to be able to be heard in a less intimidatory way. So I would ask the executive member the question which is on the order paper, which among other things points out that at a meeting of the constitutional panel on the 3rd of March, members were informed of the proposal to disband the two subcommittees. The leader of our group, Councillor Peel, expressed concern to the exec member, who agreed with him that getting rid of that committee was not a good idea. So given the agreement of the executive member and the leader of our party, and I'm sure many members of the committee, I would like to ask the exec member to assure the council that there will be no changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McKeon. Councillor Mrs Fairclough.
Well, thank you, Councillor McKeon, for your question. As you've stated, Councillor Peel did text me one evening during a meeting and to say that they didn't want to lose the subcommittee role. And as you rightly point out, I said that I agreed with him. I didn't think we should lose the subcommittee roles either. However, we have to accept that things have changed politically. There's been a lot of chopping and changing and doing and froing for people. And we know this has led to difficult political balance. a balance that I think we all respect, and certainly this administration is very keen to make sure that all parties are involved as much as possible. So because of that, our legal officer offers this, which is why we were persuaded that at the moment we would have to disband the subcommittees, and that is that from a legal perspective, the Local Government and Housing Act of 1989, not 1899, sets out the requirements to allocate seats on committees in accordance with the number of seats held on the council. And this, I believe, has been happening for many years. The council has now 8 political groups, as well as 3 elected members who are not in political groups. So using the political balance, the rules, and to ensure fairness and representation, this is to facilitate council business to be effectively run and effectively carried out. Following the election in May, we hope to revisit political balance, and we hope to reintroduce the subcommittees. However, I will say that, and I do agree with you, that it was particularly useful on the sensitive cases, but you could see it as a blessing. It isn't always, as we've seen sometimes tonight, Teams meetings are not perfect, but they do on this occasion allow witnesses to be not seen, to not be in the same room, and often it is seen perhaps as easier for people to deal with the sensitive cases on this occasion. So hopefully after May, when things have changed, we will be able to get back to the subcommittees, but I'm afraid at the moment the legal advice is that that isn't possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Fairclough. The next question is the name of Councillor Donahee for the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Council. Just before I ask the question, could I draw members and the Leader's attention, please, to question 1? And there is a typographical error, and it should read records going back to 2013 and not 2016. That's a typographical error, and I do apologise. Thank you. So in 2019, the Conservative administration, on coming to power, prided themselves on a new policy, as they called it, of openness and transparency. It was going to be a new dawn and a new way of doing business. And at that time, of course, neighbourhood management monies, and particularly spends, were of interest not only to individuals, of course, in the borough, but also to interested groups who take an interest in these matters. Can I say at the outset as well, as a member of the Labour Party, we should have published neighbourhood management spend. We should have published it, and we didn't, and for that I apologise. But in the future, and I ask you to watch this space, you will see some interesting proposals coming from Labour on transparency, openness, and the democratisation not only of this authority, but indeed of several outside organisations who we work in partnership with. But that's for another day. What Labour wouldn't have done, is made a pledge to the electorate and gone to the electorate on that pledge that transparency would take place and the figures of neighbourhood management spend going back to 2013 would be published. And that has not happened. Now, can I make it clear that my party and I will be asking for a full inquiry as to why this did not happen in 2019 when the council were in possession of this information. They didn't have to go anywhere else. All they had to do was publish the information. I personally, as a member of the authority, I am demanding that this information be published immediately through the normal channels. So getting to my questions. The first question is obviously the council has records going
Councillor
back to...
Donahee, I'm sorry, you've had your 2 minutes. Can you just... are there questions actually on the order paper within the...
Yes.
There's nothing else that you wanted to add to them?
Other than to say, Madam Mayor, that the questions that are there need answering tonight by the leader. The information was in the council's hands. The council decided not to publish it, particularly in certain areas in Tongwitherhoff, Hulton Lane, Washacre, Johnson Fold and Breakmid, especially those areas. And I'm just saying, if the information was in the council's hands, why has it not been published? And was the leader complicit in some way in a conspiracy to make people outside wonder that something wrong was happening and something wrong was going on in this authority?
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Donahee. Could you respond, Leader of the Council, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to begin by saying that it takes a brass neck, I would say, to ask us to start lecturing this administration on transparency and openness when the beginning of this question begins with an apology on how they ran this council and the way they operated and their processes. What an absolute joke. We have absolutely, you know what, Councillor Donahee, you keep arguing with us on transparency. It's been, we are running this administration in more of an inclusive, more of an open, more of a transparent manner than you ever had in your dreams. We have absolutely included every party at every level, and other opposition parties have actually promoted this and said this in quotes the paper, the way they have been included.
Answer the question, please.
Included in meetings. So to be lectured by the former Labour administration who caused that much reputational damage to this council is an absolute joke. And let me first of all say the irony. You are asking us to publish documentation that has actually been produced by a third party that you as the Labour administration have been incredibly critical of and published. And without us, Councillor Peel in the neighbourhood review only last week apologised for the way that there were no minutes, no records taken of the neighbourhood management. How are we as a council supposed to be able to produce with any form of assuredness that that was what happened with that money when we are not certain ourselves what happened with that money? We have to take on from another organisation or hearsay or rumours is beyond me. We have produced all the documentation that we have had that is formal and that is minuted and how that is spent. The fact that you in the neighbourhood management chose to do processes that were actually not minuted, not recorded and didn't measure any outcomes is no fault of this administration, and we will not be lectured to by the last Labour administration who behaved in an almost untransparent manner. And you keep going on about transparency because every time you do, the people of this town will be reminded of the sheer hypocrisy of this Labour opposition in the way they can play a transparency off. It's an absolute disgrace, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Leader.
Answer the question.
Councillor Peel, you've made a point of order.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure which standing order it is, but this is the third time that Councillor Greenhouse has refused to answer questions that are on the order paper. On this particular occasion, he refused to answer even one of them. And just let me say before I'm cut off, all of the information from Councillor Donahee has been verified as accurate by Bolton at Home. Now, I believe Bolton at Home on this issue, not Councillor Greenhouse.
There's no point of order, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry.
Convenient for you then, Nick, Convenient.
Right. Could I ask you all to mute your microphones, please, because you're all shouting at me and I can't actually hear definitively who is speaking. It's very difficult from here because I'm just looking at a computer screen and I don't actually see your faces when you're shouting out. So please bear with me because it's not quite like being in the council chamber. Okay, right, on to the next question. Gibbon, yeah. Councillor Gibbon has a question for the Deputy Leader of the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Council members. Quite a number of years ago, a very controversial planning application was submitted to build housing association properties on a piece of council land off Park Road and Little Lever, of which you've been informed earlier. It was not popular with the local residents. Unfortunately, the land had been added to the allocation plan approved by the Labour administration excuse me, in December 2014. And so few grounds for refusal could be argued, and a refusal would have undoubtedly meant the council would lose an appeal. Several public meetings took place in the community. That officers from this council, Great Places and Galliford Try, the then contractor, attended to listen to the concerns and act on the concerns of the local residents. There were also meetings held in the town hall by ourselves, officers of the council and the builders. A further public meeting took place before the road was to have new drainage installed across the frontage. Again, assurances were given that the road would be completely resurfaced once the new drainage was installed, which placated the residents. Again, a meeting was held with officers, with the builders and ourselves in the town hall, and that agreement was given again. 3 years ahead of this, and over 2 years since the Great Places properties have been let by the Housing Association, the roadway is still unfinished, along with parts of the pavements, and Vistry Partnership, who have taken over the Galliford Try Company, are reneging on their original agreements, despite pressure from myself and Councillor Hornby throughout the 3 years, and now last month Councillor Evans has also been approached to get involved. To get this stretch of roadway to be resurfaced to a standard which we would expect, we have little alternative but to use the remaining highways allocation from last year to bring it to a standard we would accept. Would the Deputy Leader therefore agree to set up a PDG and use this case, along with other similar cases, as a starting point to discuss ways in which we tighten up the agreements more and stop developers from backing down on agreements, and that officers take into account discussions that take place between developers and residents, and when they agree to do something, it is properly written into the agreement.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gibbon. Thank you, Councillor Gibbon. Councillor Cox.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and to Councillor Gibbon for the question. I think Councillor Gibbon knows I spent most of my life in contracting in a not far from Little Lever, actually, just round the corner from where you are, and I think that we have to really distinguish between a contract and what somebody has said in a meeting. Contracts are enforceable by law, and if a company has given a undertaking or signed a contract in which they are contractually obliged to carry out an undertaking, that should be a relatively straightforward thing to do. But I think sometimes, I'm not saying it's the case in this case, but I have seen many instances in which people confuse what people say in a meeting with what is actually in the contract. So what is in the contract is obviously relevant here. I think the leader has already answered some of the issues raised here, and I don't wish to go over them again. I am informed that the council can only impose requirements on an applicant that meet the 6 policy tests for planning conditions. Any condition to require the resurfacing of Park Road would not have met, I'm told, the reasonable tests, as it would not pertain to the development or the planning consent. However, I do fully recognise the frustrations in relation to this particular development. It is my understanding, Councillor Gibbon, that PDGs are established by the council to consider council policy as opposed to the implementation of national planning legislation. So on that basis, it would be quite difficult to know what a PDG could achieve in this instance. However, I am very happy. I think the leader really spoke about this at some length. I think this is a case of ward casework, and I am happy to meet ward members who have raised this issue tonight to discuss the matter further, so that I can get a better understanding of what has gone on here and what options might be available to us. I appreciate we're about to enter a period of purdah, so notwithstanding what happens in the May elections, I'm quite happy to sit down with yourself, Councillor Gibbon, and other councillors in Little Lever to see if you can perhaps expand on some of the issues that you've raised tonight, and to see whether or not a solution can be found. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. The next question is in the name of Councillor Dean to Councillor Mrs Fairclough.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think most people know that I've talked about the market over the years on a number of occasions, trying to put positive views forward, both in opposition and as part of the administration. I think Bolton's market is really one of the historical jewels in the town's crown, and long may that continue. But there's been some fabulous work that's taken place more recently, both from with council officers and with the traders. So I'd like to ask the executive member, would you join me in thanking the traders and staff of Bolton Market for the way in which they have provided a great service during difficult times because of the pandemic. The free parking, the robust customer safety and home delivery services of fresh produce have provided our town and residents with a first-class service. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Mrs Fairclough.
Thank you, Councillor Dean, and that is a most sincere thank you, and not just a polite one that we usually use when receiving a question that we perhaps wouldn't be that keen on. I would be delighted to join you, and I think that I speak for every member of this council when I say thank you to our award-winning market, managed by our award-winning market officer, Mr. Peter Entwistle, who recently was awarded, I think it's Market Manager of the Year or something similar. And also to all those traders and the officers who've worked so hard in these very strange and difficult times. This pandemic has been horrendous for everyone. Businesses have suffered dreadfully, none less than our market traders. But like many businesses in our town, they've made the very best of things. They've looked at new and different ways to continue to serve the people of Bolton. And as you rightly say, they've taken on new initiatives for the market, starting up click and collect, home deliveries for the market customers. And this has been very, very welcome and highly successful. I am very proud to say that the council has done everything possible to support our traders. Our officers reacted swiftly and decisively to the ever-changing guidance and worked tirelessly to keep this market a safe environment for everyone. For the first time that I can remember, we give free 2-hour parking was included in our car parking offer. This is a first for this market. And of course, our pride and confidence in this market shines through in the 7 million put aside for the town's funds to make our market world class. So I am delighted to thank everyone involved. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Fairclough. The next question is in the name of Councillor Connor to the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've helped coordinate a support group since last March, accumulating a strong team of volunteers helping our community throughout the pandemic. It was an honour to be called upon for this team to assist in the vaccination rollout. Having volunteered at the first vaccination centre that opened in Bolton from the first week and seeing firsthand this incredible national and local vaccine rollout, will the leader join me in thanking all the frontline staff, council staff and volunteers who have contributed to this magnificent effort that saw us last week pass the milestone of vaccinating over 100,000 of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much to my ward colleague for the question. And absolutely, I would absolutely love to join her and thank this amazing rollout. And let's be honest, it has been an amazing rollout. The way partner organisations, the council, the NHS, the government have all pulled together, and this amazing national and local vaccine rollout has been simply phenomenal. And for last year, for us to surpass the 100,000, but a huge thank you to not just our frontline staff, to our council staff, but a real shout out to the many hundreds of volunteers. And I know my ward colleague has played a huge part of that locally during the whole pandemic, helping people who needed their medication, their shopping, just being there for people, and a team of fantastic volunteers that have then been transferred down onto the health centre on Thicketford Road. So it's a phenomenal effort, and that all from our ward colleague who during that has had COVID herself. So a tremendous effort, but thank you to the whole. I suppose I can't do this. It's so hard to thank a whole cohort and to make an individual comment, but I feel Dr. Helen Wall does need special reference in this from us as a council. She has led from the start on behalf of the GPs, and an absolute credit to the town, and I thank her and her whole team, and has been listed by my colleague, everybody who's been involved in this rollout. I know I speak on behalf of across all parties here who are hugely grateful for the way in which the vaccination programme in Bolton has progressed. It's not been without its challenges at the start and little bit of bumps along the way, but wherever there's been issues, it's been addressed. And thank you to everyone who's been involved. A monumental effort and helps us get back on the road to normality. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. Well done.
Well said.
Thank you, Leader. Could I remind you all to mute your mics, please, because I'm getting quite a lot of feedback at the moment. The next question is in the name of Councillor Vivers for Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Barrowbridge Road has been closed to vehicles since August last year. A combination of heavy rain and rising water levels caused a substantial collapse of the retaining wall adjacent to the river, and there are now bulges in other areas of the wall, suggest it may not be too long before the wall fails again at some point. Any localised patching is likely to result in the repeated cycle of opening and closing the road again and again as collapses occur and repairs are made, and obviously this will mean greater costs to the council in the long term. So what is needed is a full reconstruction of the length of the affected wall. Now, this is the second time in recent years that this road has been closed, which, as you can imagine, has left residents inconvenienced and in some cases out of pocket, as the detour for some adds considerable time and cost to their daily commute. And what's more, this has been going on now for some 7 months. So can the Executive Cabinet member please assure residents that work will start at an early date using some of the council's reserves if necessary? And can he also confirm my view that years of chronic underfunding by government is one major reason for the poor condition of this road, and the considerable inconvenience suffered by residents. I thank the Executive Cabinet Member in advance for his answer. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vivers. Councillor Haslam.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beers, for your question. And of course, I do sympathise with the inconvenience and trouble this is causing residents. Work will commence on the retaining wall at Barrow Bridge as soon as we can secure funding, which is not insubstantial. The estimate for the work at the initial point of the collapse was in excess of 110,000, and we are expecting this to increase further. As you would perhaps anticipate, there are a number of schemes across the borough that our bridges teams need to address. And however, with only limited budget available, some level of prioritisation is necessary. That said, local concerns regarding Barrow Bridge Road are fully acknowledged and all funding options are being explored. I can reassure Councillor Vivers the design work for the repairs is at a very advanced stage, and this should enable us to quickly mobilise the scheme once we can get the funding in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haslam. Councillor, next question is Councillor McGowan for Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Council. I appreciate that I have asked a number of questions about missed bin collections in the past, but this problem has still not been resolved. Will the Executive Cabinet Member apologise to the many residents of Bolton who are currently receiving an appalling bin collection service? As vehicle breakdowns are likely to be a major cause of the problem, will she also inform Council whether the bin collection vehicles are purchased or leased, and whether they will remain the policy when the current vehicles are replaced? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your question, Councillor McGowan. Can I start by firstly apologising to those residents who have experienced some disruption to their waste collection service. There is no doubt that the Waste and Recycling Service has been contending with a number of operational challenges, but I can assure you that the operational management team have been doing their utmost to maximise resource availability and to provide our residents with a timely service. However, since December, the service has experienced a series of delays due to vehicle breakdown and reductions in staff due to sickness because of the ongoing pandemic. Members will also be aware that the service has also been disrupted on several occasions due to the weather, mainly snow and ice. We have an ageing fleet of vehicles which are requiring increased levels of reactive as well as planned maintenance to keep them roadworthy, and this is resulting in a number of high vehicles being off the road due to breakdown or mechanical defects. We are in the process of finalising a tender exercise for replacement of 21 council-owned refuse vehicles, with one contract awarded and another one imminent. We expect to receive them by October this year. In the interim period, we have supplemented the existing fleet with several additional hire vehicles, which will provide some cover for off-road vehicles. I have requested our fleet management service be reviewed, and we are receiving support from technical advisors from the Association of Public Service Excellence. This review is very much focused on technical capacity within the fleet maintenance workshop, having regard to the size and complexity of the entire council fleet, performance and productivity measures and efficiency opportunities. This will help to increase the overall effectiveness of the fleet service. I want to take this opportunity to personally thank all of the crews and officers who have gone above and beyond during never seen before conditions. They have worked weekends away from their families and had to learn how to adapt to new ways of working, and I am proud of how they have pulled together to keep disruption as low as possible. Although some residents have been inconvenienced with later than normal collections, they have been collected during very challenging times. I do share your frustrations, but please be reassured that I'm in regular discussions with officers and everybody is working to resolve these issues and to improve service performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. The next question is in the name of Councillor Hayes for the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council will recall that following a series of devastating reports on the performance of Greater Manchester Police, the force was effectively placed in special measures and the Chief Constable was forced to fall on his sword. However, the elected Mayor and his deputy, who bear responsibility for ensuring that Greater Manchester policing is, I quote, efficient and effective, appear to have done virtually nothing to remedy the situation. Indeed, it is now reported that an additional 4,500 crimes have not been reported since the report and departure of the Chief Constable in December. In January, the leader promised me that he would ask the elected Mayor for a detailed action plan on Bolton to return policing in the borough to an efficient and effective level. And I therefore ask the leader, can he state whether he's received such reports and whether he is confident that it will achieve the desired result? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Leader of the Council.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And first of all, let me say that I have not received such a report. However, and I want to be fair, we have seen a large change in personnel, as Councillor Hayes will more than likely know, in Bolton. There has been a change not only at the top of GMP, but there's also been a change in Bolton. And I have met the new Chief Constable, and I fully expect that there should be something forthcoming. I very much hope in that regard now that the personnel from Bolton have been established. I mean, I will say for me, this is about for Bolton, and we've had many debates in the chamber about policing. This for me is about how the funding is prioritised. It is about numbers, clearly, and clearly we've seen numbers replacing some of the losses in past years. But it is about how those police are prioritised, and more importantly, perhaps, what priorities they're given. And I think we've debated on many occasions, but the deprioritisation of neighbourhood policing, which took place many years, as I believe have been a great detriment, not only in actually addressing crime. I don't like using the phrase low-level crime because to many people it's extremely highly affects them deeply in their day-to-day lives. We're talking burglary, antisocial behaviour, on-street drug dealing, vandalism, all those things that people expect the police to react to and take control over for them. And I think that reduction and that deprioritisation in neighbourhood crime has been very detrimental. We have seen a promise from the Mayor this year that will be addressed, but that same promise was made last year. And I think we've seen very little improvement over the past year, and therefore this has a really unfortunate and detrimental effect on the connect, I believe, between residents and their police force, and a disconnect which we all support our police. Well, I hope we do. We certainly do, and I'm sure you do, Councillor Hayes. We support them in all that they do in their job. And I think for them to be told that neighbourhood policing is not a priority for those at the top, it is simply a bad judgment call and one that needs to be addressed. So that for me is what I see as more efficient and effective level of policing. And we may within parties disagree with what that means. But certainly I hope very much that when the new Chief Constable is in place, and she is in place now, and actually Inspector rather can come before us and meet us all and tell us about her plan for Bolton as we move forward, will be certainly beneficial to us all and give us some confidence moving forward. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question is in the name of Councillor Wilkinson for Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, it's welcome news, the additional funding for Bolton Town Centre from the Towns Fund, although there are probably some very interesting awards amongst that long list, but we'll not go into that. But the money for Bolton Town Centre is very welcome. However, I'm sure the executive member is well aware of the condition of the highway network across Bolton. The £12 million which was recently carried out was very welcome, but it was only almost a sticking plaster in dealing with some of the outstanding issues, and this winter has created even more problems. However, though, the additional funds should in some respect allow a number of projects which were being funded from the 100 million to be carried out. And therefore, I would like to ask the executive member, in furtherance of paragraph 4 of the Liberal Democrat amendment to the budget that was approved and supported by his group, will he urgently investigate whether this will allow an equivalent amount of the 100 million loan taken out to stimulate regeneration of town centres in the borough to be used to improve the terrible state of many residential roads in the borough in the same way that the 12 million was used this financial year. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the council. We sometimes, Madam Mayor, when things go wrong, we demand an inquiry and seek lessons to be learned. I think it's not a bad idea from time to time when things go extremely well that we also learn lessons as to why something was such a success. And I think the road surfacing programme is a case in point. This programme engaged members, it engaged the public. We've now resurfaced well in excess of 100 roads and pavements across the town. And you know, I pay credit to John Kelly and his team for running the scheme in such an efficient manner, and officers should take full credit for that, Madam Mayor. Also, it's rarely the case that a report is brought to an exec members meeting saying that we've surfaced all the roads we intended to, and we've still got some extra money available, and we want to surface some more. That happened to me a few weeks ago. So, you know, I am fulsome in my praise of the officer, John Kelly, and his team for doing that. Councillor Wilkinson, quite rightly, in my view, welcomes the nearly £23 million of Towns funding for Bolton Town Centre. This was the result of a lot of hard work, again, on the part of the bid team. And I'd like to pay, if I could, Madam Mayor, particular tribute to the Towns Board and its chair, Belinda Beaver, who also worked very hard on securing this money for the town centre. It's going to create a lot of new jobs, a lot of new opportunities, and a number of fantastic schemes that weren't actually covered by the 100 million. So it's fantastic news for the town, and certainly something worth celebrating in these difficult times. I should point out to Councillor Wilkinson that the extra 12 million, to be absolutely fair, and I know Councillor Peel has got a newfound desire for transparency. It was actually only £10 million. There was 2 million already in place in the existing budget, and we added 10 million to that. That 10 million was not actually connected to the 100 million town centre fund, but actually came from an increase in the council's capital programme. This programme of resurfacing would have happened regardless as to whether or not the council had borrowed the 100 million for the town centre investment. We should point out, of course, that 12 million was granted from the 100 million to district centres. I can assure Councillor Wilkinson, though, that notwithstanding what happens in May, this executive and the members that make up the executive are absolutely committed to finding future funding to build upon the success of this scheme. May will determine who does that, but it was a tremendously successful scheme, and we are as keen as anybody to find alternative or future sources of funding to ensure that we can continue to maintain the town's highway network in the condition that the residents expect. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Wilkinson, question for Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think all members of council will be well aware of the changes which have taken place to the planning process over many years. Some of those who have been lingering around in Bolton Town Hall will have seen substantial changes, to say the least. Many of them for the worse, not the better. And in particular for many of the ordinary people of Bolton who pay their council tax and get precious little in respect from the planning system these days. It seems to be totally and overwhelmingly skewed towards the developer, and the proposed changes by the government, which recently came in, and also the big changes about growth areas, etc., will skew that even more. However, one of the big concerns is, of course, the schemes of delegation, which has been foisted upon local government by central government, which has created many problems, to say the least, for many individuals and local communities. Therefore, I would like to ask the Chairman of Planning, does the Chair of Planning still hold the view, which he expressed numerous times over the years, shared by many others, that the delegation of decisions to planning officers has gone too far? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I begin by thanking Councillor Wilkinson for his question, although I confess to being somewhat perplexed at the outset. Councillor Wilkinson is an experienced councillor. He's been a member of this council for a long number of years. He has been a sometime member of the Planning Committee, in the past perhaps more frequently than currently, but still a member of the Planning Committee. He well knows the planning process in terms of applications received by the council. Members are advised daily of the applications. They're consolidated into a weekly list circulated to all members. And that gives members the opportunity, on behalf of those people they represent, to express their views on every single planning application, whether they support or oppose an application. And we all know that such grounds should be on proper planning grounds, respecting the views of professional officers. And I think that's important, that we do respect the views of professional officers whom we pay to advise members, who must interpret the law as it stands. Councillor Wilkinson and members will know that the last 12 months with teams rather than actual meetings, it has been more difficult to conduct meetings generally. And that's the reason that we've had perhaps a maximum of 4 planning applications at any one meeting, in order that members can do justice to the application. But as chairman, and I know the vice chairman supports this because we've had conversations about it, we are open to additional meetings. And indeed, tomorrow there will be an additional meeting for that very reason, that we can have a reasoned debate on a smaller number of planning applications. I've actually reviewed, and this is my review, of previous years. And actually, I find the number of applications to come into committee is very comparable now to that which has prevailed for a number of years. The peer review, which took place a few years ago, repeated member training sessions attended by most members, have told us that we need to consider very carefully the grounds on which members consider applications, not simply a knee-jerk reaction. We have got to consider planning grounds for them. And this is where my though perhaps I shouldn't be surprised, because only earlier this evening, members of the council approved a scheme of delegation. And I refer Councillor Wilkinson for ease to page 32, section G brackets 1, powers to the director of place. And it goes on, paragraph 1 of that, to determine all planning applications except the following. Now the list then is extensive of those which are excluded. That is not new wording, Madam Mayor. That wording has been around for some time. I don't recall Councillor Wilkinson opposing the scheme of delegation last year, this year, or in any previous year in that particular issue. Had the wording tonight been different to that which we approved last year, I might have had somewhat weaker grounds for arguing it. But the leader earlier referred to the fact that we all know the consequences of spuriously dealing with applications, refusing applications. Inspectors on appeal likely potentially to put in conditions which are much weaker than those which we as a council would wish to put forward. So I am confident, and I have learned extensively in the last period as chairman of planning committee, along with the vice chairman, that we do deal robustly with applications, that they are treated in the proper manner, that where members of the council and the public put forward reasoned and proper grounds for a refusal, an application that officers might think should be recommended, that is taken into consideration, and where appropriate, they're then brought to the committee. If Councillor Wilkinson would like to recite to me at any time applications which he thinks have been dealt with in a delegated manner which should not have been, I'd be happy to have a look at them. I'm sure the Vice Chairman would join with me in that sort of exercise. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Next question is for Councillor Newell for Councillor Muslim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council colleagues. The Speed Watch initiative, I think, is one of those rare beasts that all colleagues will agree is a good thing, and we all want an involvement in an initiative like this. It's an occasion where we can empower our residents and facilitate them to the extent that they feel like they have some control over a problem. It's a problem for every ward, in lesser or more degrees, but every ward has the problem of speeding traffic. So with that in mind, can I ask the executive member, please, could we have a progress of the extension of Speedwatch, and when might we see this operational across the borough? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newell. Councillor Muslim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just start by saying that I know there is a motion later on regarding Speedwatch as well. So I've had some remarks prepared for that as well. So I will try and sort of get a lot of those through now, just in case we don't get to the motion. But I'm sure you'll agree, Councillor, you all do get to the point of your question and answers it. And I think, you're right to raise this. Speeding has been a serious problem, particularly over the last 12 months, I think, as we've seen, partly due to quieter roads, as COVID restrictions have been in place, has meant more people have been treating it as a racetrack rather than a road used by everybody. And it's unfortunate, really, that we've seen a number of tragic accidents occur on the roads as they become busier once again, and of course my thoughts are with those who have unfortunately lost someone due to reckless driving. And as a Conservative administration, we have been clear in our stance on speeding, and it is unacceptable and it must be dealt with. And that was why I think pre-Christmas now that the Cabinet requested the attendance of Superintendent Rick Jackson and Chief Superintendent Stuart Ellison to a meeting so we could discuss frankly but constructively, of course, our concerns regarding speeding in the borough. And I am pleased to say that meeting did yield positive results. And I'm sure members and residents will have seen the increase in news stories, not only in the Bolton News, but also on social media posts from GMP as well, regarding the success of Operation Portman, which was a direct result of the actions and conversations of this Conservative administration in Bolton. And it is, It's Operation Portman, in December alone saw, 3 arrested for drink driving, 564 speeding offences detected, 2 offences of driving while on the mobile phone, 5 offences of driving without due care and attention, 1 arrest for driving while disqualified, and 16 vehicles seized for no insurance. But as for the matter of Speedwatch, I'm sure many of you will remember on a number of occasions, really, that both here in full council and at scrutiny, I've given my personal commitment to seeing Speedwatch initiatives rolled out across the borough. And I can confirm that I have spoken with officers of the council and GMP to resolve any stumbling blocks as soon as possible. And I can confirm that officers are in frequent contact with GMP and a draft policy for Speedwatch now exists. But it must be noted that this requires agreement between GMP and local authorities. Ever since I took this position, I've been keen to see the rollout of Speedwatch, and while I must commend the team in community safety for coming up with policies and drafting policies as well, we have been constantly hit by a roadblock at GMP as they wanted to create a uniform policy for Greater Manchester. Now, as I say, a draft policy for that does exist. I haven't seen it yet. It hasn't been shared with me, but we are requesting that. And hopefully we will see going forward those initiatives brought in over the course of the next year or so. And the word I've had from the police is that part of the delay that they have seen has been due to COVID. And of course, Speedwatch will involve a number of people huddled around a speed gun. So it's probably not been the best time during COVID to try and launch an initiative such as this. However, we as a council stand ready to support where possible. We've already set aside some money for the purchasing of potentially of speed guns that perhaps ward councillors would be able to use without GMP in their wards, along with local residents, but that's just an option being considered and isn't definitive as of yet. We are working with GMP wherever possible, but of course I will endeavour to inform members of any developments when there's been sufficient progress in a timely and appropriate manner. But I'm just glad that it's something that we as a Conservative administration have been keen to do since we took control, and hopefully we'll work with GMP to make that a reality in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muslim. Councillor Hayes is the next question for the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's fair to say that the last meeting of the Council, virtually all groups, no, let's say all groups represented on this Council, were horrified at the level of cuts that would have to be made to the budget and their effect on all Bolton residents, particularly those who are most vulnerable. To his and their credit, the leader and his group supported our amendment, which had some pretty scathing comments on how his government has treated local government and this council in particular. The council resolved then to convey these views in the strongest terms to the Prime Minister, the Secretary of State, the LGA and the borough's MPs. I believe this needs to be done sooner rather than later, before things are planned for the following financial year, and that it would have far more effect if this could be done on a cross-party basis, including those groups that may, for various reasons, have voted against the amendment if they're prepared to be involved. So I asked the leader, can he explain when and how this will be done, and will he please ensure that all political groups have an opportunity to be involved? Will he also offer the opportunity to the Labour group, even though they voted against doing this, on the assumption that they may have misvoted? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Leader of the Council.
A letter will be drawn up, Roger, and you will be included in it. No problem with that at all. The usual systems that are in place are that the full text of the motion that has been approved is included in that letter, and as you say, that motion contains some pretty strong language, and that would go off in its due course. It would normally explain in that that it had been passed, obviously. It wouldn't normally go into the detail of who supported and who didn't, because it was a motion that was passed at council. I don't know if you're inferring within this whether you want signatories on the letter or not. I personally wouldn't have gone to the Labour group because they did not vote for the motion, so I presume they did not understand. I'm open to discussion, and perhaps the way forward where we could discuss it at an informal leaders meeting where we could get together and we could produce the letter. But the letter would be very much the normal letter that goes off, where a motion was passed by Bolton Council to inform yourselves and the wording of the motion and that it was passed. So that is normally the processes. But I'm happy to have an informal with all leaders to see if they want a further involvement. But the only involvement as I see it, but we can discuss that at the meeting, would be whether or not it was signed by the group leaders. But I'm happy to have those discussions.
Okay, thank you, Leader.
Okay, the next question is in the name of Councillor Newall for the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council colleagues. Firstly, I would like to say that I am aware that the issue of misogyny as a hate crime has been discussed in Parliament today, and I'm not aware of the outcome of that discussion, but apparently it was raised today by the MP Stella Creasy. I, along with others, many others I suspect, watched with horror last Saturday night as a vigil for a murdered girl ended in women being manhandled and thrown to the ground. On Sunday in the UK, the situation was this. In the first 10 weeks of this year, 34 women have been murdered by men. 3 of them since Sarah Everard went missing on the 3rd of March. And these are just the ones that we know about. It's the tip of the iceberg. I am very disappointed at some of the response to this event. It was as if the fact that the vigil wasn't lawful, that it somehow empowered the police to treat women in this way. The Met have been treating all gatherings as unlawful since the 6th of January. The event was cancelled by the organisers, but the women still turned up. And for a few hours, all was peaceful at this event. This was a vigil, it wasn't a protest. What on earth did the police think that these women were going to do? It was a vigil, not a protest. But I fear that the protests will come. And when they do, I think we need to remember 2 things. You cannot stop a protest. You can only criminalise those who choose to join in. And this is the path that the government have chosen to take us down with their most recent legislation. And the other thing we ought to remember at all times is that we police by consent in this country. All is not lost though, because the Prime Minister said today, I promise to address the fundamental issue of casual everyday sexism. In other quotes from Johnson, he said, women only go to uni to find a husband. And he wrote, there's a lot of hot toddy at the Labour Party conference. And my personal favourite is, voting Tory will cause your wife to have bigger breasts. What a card. We're so lucky to have him. He's like Bernard Manning without the charisma. Madam Mayor, Leader, I ask this question as per the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newall. Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for raising this, Councillor Newall. It's again a hugely important subject and one which I feel does need addressing. I did look at the anomalies actually when I received the question of the anomalies between how the police force react to misogyny and how the judicial system reacts to misogyny. And clearly, I mean, there are some police forces that informally record misogyny as a strand of hate crime and do prioritise it in that way. That isn't good enough, obviously, that is informal. But the problem is that it is not an official strand under the criminal justice system, and therefore there is no uplift for the crime in the judicial system, which would appear, well, not appear, I would say needs addressing. And those hate crime strands that do are currently race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or transgender identity. So I think there is something that really does need addressing. That is the justice side of things. What I think is, I will comment on also, is I think we all watched with some disbelief at how those women were treated in London on Clapham Common. And I do, was it on Clapham Common where the individual was? I think it was. And I think you know, a lot of serious questions have to be asked at what was behind it and the approach of the Met. What I would also say, and this is in any way condoning any of the actions, is that I do believe regarding the COVID pandemic and regarding demonstrations and protests, and I accept this was in no way a protest or a demonstration. This was a peaceful coming together of people. However, there are guidelines, and the police, I think, have found them in a very difficult place throughout this, probably with a lot of lack of where they've been told one thing and they're not wanting to do another, and they've been caught between the rock and a hard place about how they react when gatherings form, which are not great at the moment of any gatherings forming, even in spite of the belief and the cause. And I think coupled with that, you then have on top of this the layer of everybody's right to protest and demonstrate against something which they feel is an injustice. And we must never, ever go away from that basic principle that we're proud to have in this country of free speech. So I think you bring together into this kind of toxic mix a lot of very, very crucial things that need to be addressed. But I'll just finish primarily by saying what would happen if this happened in Bolton. And in actual, we've already had conversations in Bolton with the police that if such a vigil, demonstration, whatever you want to call it, gathering together of just wanting to share their views and stand up for what they believe in, was to take place, how we would work, and we definitely worked together. And I have to praise the local police in Bolton, because when we've had issues during the pandemic, we have worked together, and I believe the police have really acted respectfully and acted when they needed to act in some cases, but been respectful of what was going on. So I have confidence that if such an event was to take place in Bolton, and we heard of such an event, and as I say, we've already had those discussions, that we would be able to work with police to ensure that we did not witness on our streets the similar events that we saw in London. So I hope that gives some assurances that we are already having those conversations at gold standard meetings. And yes, I do believe that it does need to be looked at within the law, within the judicial system. And thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of the Council. The next question is in the name of Councillor Ishmael, and it again is for the Leader of the Council. Oh, sorry. I should have put my glasses on. Apologies. Not deliberately cutting you out, Councillor Cunningham. I couldn't read properly then. The next question is in the name of Councillor Cunningham for Councillor Baines. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The current COVID pandemic has served to further highlight the amazing work being undertaken at our local hospital, and I've seen much evidence of this. The Royal Bolton is a fantastic place, and the amount of effort that has gone in by the staff there is absolutely fantastic. However, the pressures placed on staff in responding to the ordinary and the extraordinary workload in their care of the sick has revealed salient issues regarding the actual hospital estate and its buildings. The hospital is dated back going to 1814. In fact, part of it used to be the old workhouse. Many areas of it need modernising so as to respond to the changing needs of patients. The people of Bolton deserve the highest level of healthcare, And if I could ask now the Executive Cabinet member please to give the Council an update into the Bolton's bid for an actual brand new hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cunningham. I'm absolutely delighted to provide you with an update. The Royal Bolton Hospital started life, as you're probably well aware, as the Townley's Workhouse and a Victorian dispensary for the sick in 1861. It was amalgamated with the Bolton Royal Infirmary in 1996, which was demolished a few years later. The BRI, as it was called, predated the Royal Bolton Hospital, having been built in 1814. The site has been added to since that time, and the Princess Anne Maternity Unit was opened in 1977. But the needs of Victorians are very different to our needs today. Whilst the hospital is still able to provide safe and effective care, as you alluded to, quite rightly, being rated good by the CQC, the whole estate is ageing and it's not fit to last another generation. Repair and upgrades are proving very costly and are extremely time consuming. The hospital is estimated to have a catchment population of 310 to 320,000 compared with a resident Bolton population of 270,000. 72,000 patients are admitted annually and 110,000 people attend A&E, with a higher number still attending various outpatient departments. It's coped well with the pressures of COVID, but a new facility is needed in order to meet the more complex emerging needs of patients and be fit for purpose. For example, wider corridors and more single patient rooms will help prevent cross-infection and enhance safety for patients and staff alike. The Trust are working with IFM and have commissioned Arcus to help prepare their bid for a £100 million flagship project from the government's £2.8 billion health infrastructure plan. Phase 1 will hopefully include a new maternity unit and women's services, including gynaecology and breast services and a new neonatal care facility. And there is public consultation because it's a hospital for the people and the residents of Bolton. The government have not released the dates for the bids yet, but they are expected very, very soon. In readiness, the bid will be heard at the Trust's Board of Directors in May to be signed off and be ready to go. This is a fantastic example of the relatively new SFC, or Single Commissioning Board, and the ICP, the Integrated Care Partnership, working to develop the health offer in our town, and is testament to all the hard work which has been undertaken in the last year by the partnership, which is the CCG, the FT and the Council. Thank you, Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next question is in the name of Councillor Ishmael for the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Council. My apologies, I'm having internet connectivity issues, so the camera is turned off. Please can the Leader confirm that this Council will not enter into any transaction, business relationship, commercial contract or any other financial arrangement, including the disposal of land, whether unilaterally or in concert with others, which directly or indirectly benefits any state, entity or organisation that is internationally recognised as engaging in genocide, torture or human rights atrocities, such as China in its treatment of the Uyghurs or Myanmar in its treatment of the Rohingya people. This list is not exclusive. The BBC reported today that Chinese telecommunication companies have Uyghur facial recognition software so that they can be rounded up, interned and cleansed. Each day there is another harrowing report on the BBC of systematic gang rape, torture, ethnic cleansing, forced conversions and the disappearance of Uyghurs in the Xinjiang educational camps. The Council has ambitious plans for the redevelopment of the town centre, which is welcomed by all. Having said that, the Leader is asked to ensure that the business and financial arrangements of this Council in relation to the development of the town centre and generally do not ultimately result in the council financially supporting or enabling genocide, torture and human rights atrocities. In this regard, the leader is asked to reconsider the legal agreements that the council has or is proposing to enter into with Bolton Regeneration Limited, which is 50% owned by BCEGI. For the avoidance of doubt, despite previous assertions by the executive to the contrary, BCEGI UK, whilst incorporated in the UK, is owned by the state of China by its ownership of BCEGI and BCEG, as is stated on its website. Bolton has always held its head up high. Let's not take it down a road where future generations could condemn this council for prioritising profit over humanity. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Thank you, Councillor Ishmael. Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Councillor Ishmael will be aware, the Council entered into an option agreement with Bolton Regeneration Limited to bring forward the Crompton Place redevelopment scheme, since referred to as the Victoria Square redevelopment scheme. The option agreement was initially entered into in 2018 under the last administration, of which she was a member, and Bolton Regeneration Limited is a 50-50 joint venture company established by BCEGI Limited and UK developers Granite Turner for the specific purpose of redeveloping Crompton Place, now known as Victoria Square. The council is legally bound by the terms of the option agreement signed by the last administration. For the avoidance of doubt, does not require BCEGI Limited to provide any investment funding towards the project. BCEGI Limited's role will be related to managing and delivering construction contracts related to the redevelopment project. The council is committed to regenerating Crompton Place and would never facilitate the support of or enable genocide, torture or human rights atrocities. As Councillor Bilkis notes in a question, Bolton has always held its head up high in this regard, and we have no reason to believe that any commercial activities currently entered into contribute to such activity either directly or indirectly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question is in the name of Councillor Hayes, and it's for Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Executive Cabinet member will be aware of the approval given by himself and the Cabinet in relation to the government funding of the A6 and Chorley New Road cycle lane schemes. He will be aware that Chorley New Road has raised some issues, and we discussed that earlier this evening, and the scheme appears to have changed from the original approval by Cabinet. The A6 has not got underway apart from the resurfacing of sections of the A6 between Overholton and Checkerbent, although it was to have been completed in October 2020. Can the Executive Cabinet member provide an update to Council on both schemes, the conditions attached to the schemes by GMCA and the DFT, the implications for the Council in terms of clawback, the future funding of other schemes, either from I now get into trouble with the with my papers, with the whole right. The future funding of other schemes, either from the GM Mayor's Fund or the DFC. Sorry for that stoppage, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haslam.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hayes. I'm mindful, very mindful, that the leader has already addressed a number of issues in relation to the Emergency Active Travel Scheme on Chorley New Road. So in that regard, I won't repeat the same. I can confirm, however, that the Council intends on carrying out a short 2-week consultation on the Chorley New Road cycle lane before determining what further action is to be taken on the 2 emergency active travel fund schemes in Bolton. Members, of course, will be updated once this exercise is completed, and we shall share the information with you. As the leader has already indicated, until the outcome of the consultation is known, we can't comment on what action may be necessary in respect of discussions with the combined authority and or the Department of Transport for the potential for grant clawback should the emergency active travel measures not be supported. We are very much aware as an administration that the emergency active travel measures, whilst intended to support recovery from the pandemic, may well divide opinion amongst our residents. That is why we take the view that consultation is so important and should inform all future decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haslam. The next question is in the name of Councillor Cunningham for Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Little technical difficulty there. The people of Kearsley living close to the railway and the MWEP compounds during the electrification process of the Manchester to Preston line have now endured over 5 years of disruption, mess, aggravation and damage to their property, cars, with no tangible benefits. The train service for Kearsley remains abysmal, with only 1 train per hour, meaning that most Kearsley residents still have to drive or pay taxi fares to go to Trinity Street before they can catch a train for their onward journey. Members will have heard me stand up in the chamber and raise these issues many times over the years. I've now heard rumours that Greater Manchester Combined Authority are submitting proposals on a change in train services. Could the executive member provide some clarification and also say if there is any way that Kearsley will benefit from any proposed changes after being ignored for so long? Thank you.
Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Cunningham, for your question. And Councillor Cunningham is correct on 2 points. Firstly, that Kearsley has suffered a very poor train provision for many years, and the discomfort caused by electrification impacted heavily on Kearsley residents. It is actually perhaps surprising that as many as 40,200 passengers used the station in 2018-2019 with only 1 train per hour. And secondly, the GMCA have been requested to give a response to the North of England timetable consultation. This consultation is taking place to try and improve the reliability of train travel in the Greater Manchester area. Passengers throughout Bolton have suffered appalling delays and cancellations, mainly because of congestion on the Castlefield Chord. And the review is attempting to improve the situation by reducing the number of regular trains on this stretch from 15 trains per hour to 12 trains per hour. The GMCA has submitted proposals on behalf of the 10 boroughs. In recent years, train travel has been a nightmare for many Bolton passengers, and because of the concern of many councillors, including Councillor Cunningham, Bolton has been most active in trying to get the best deal for Bolton passengers. And in the submission to the consultation that the GMCA has submitted, Bolton has done just that, due to our unrelenting effort in arguing Bolton's case. If these proposals are accepted, I am delighted to report that there will be 2 trains in each direction from Kearsley and also Farnworth and Moses Gate, which will support the whole regeneration agenda for those towns. The target date for these changes is May 2022, and this will be the most frequent service from these stations have had in decades. This proposal has also been supported by the South Lancashire Rail Partnership Group and the Bolton Rail Users Group. I'm pleased also to report that also included in the proposals we've got in the GMCA proposals is the return of the hourly Manchester Airport to Cumbria service back to Bolton, something that I've always maintained should not have been taken away from us 3 years ago. And it is recommended that the Manchester Airport Scottish services will stop at Bolton. All Scottish will stop at Bolton instead of just the ones off-peak. Again, we have long argued for this. There will be 2 further trains per hour from Blackpool North to the airport, calling it the Piccadilly and the airport, and 4 trains per hour on the Victoria corridor. I will always lobby and support all proposals to improve rail services for Bolton residents. Thank you, Councillor Cunningham, for your question.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question is the name of Councillor Brady, again for Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the executive member advise why the 577 bus service from Blackrod, Horwich, Middlebrook, Ladybridge and Bolton was withdrawn from Longworth Road, Brownlow Road and Pennine Road in July 2020? What steps have been taken to reinstate the service and when the service will be running again? As a short summary of the background, the service was abruptly withdrawn in July 2020. Despite numerous calls to Vision Bus and TFGM, there was no explanation why other than blaming parked cars, and no date given for the reinstatement was forthcoming. Notices were finally placed on the bus stops in December 2020, stating the service was withdrawn due to parking issues, yet throughout this whole saga, Highways advised there was no reported disruption to refuse collections along this route. This route has been under threat previously, yet it serves a sizable residential area at the top of a very steep hill, leaving those without other forms of transport struggling to reach Horwich town centre, never mind further afield. Thank you.
Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Councillor Brady, for your question. I fully appreciate the concerns of residents of the area and of Councillor Brady. It is quite a winding route with steep gradients in an area with a lot of elderly people for whom the bus service is a vital lifeline. And I know of the efforts that Councillor Brady has made in trying to get the bus service operational again. The difficulty in operating this bus service, according to the bus operator Vision, is the number of vehicles parked in Longworth Road, especially on the bend between Moorside Avenue and Rockhaven Avenue, and with vehicles parked on both sides of the road. This problem has exacerbated in the present pandemic, with more people working from home, etc. This is making it difficult for the bus to get through, and when it is going through on the bend and the bus is meeting other traffic coming in the other direction, a standoff situation is developing with no vehicle wanting to reverse. Bolton Council have maintained that refuse vehicles are not encountering similar problems, but to be fair, refuse vehicles are slightly shorter and more resilient to curbs. A solution obviously may be parking restrictions, but as you will appreciate, this will be contentious with local residents. Bolton Highways officers have been in conversation with TFGM about this, and I've personally contacted them several times about this. Conversation has been had with Vision, and we hope things might have improved with the schools returning. Vision did try to operate this service this week, but unfortunately this service is just as bad. Now that is what I'd already prepared, but late this afternoon I received the following information back from TFGM after further conversations. Following further conversations with Vision Buses Limited, the operator of the 577, I am pleased to inform you that a small single-deck vehicle will be used on some journeys with effect from this Saturday. And I will forward the timetable to Councillor Brady. There will be 3 services on Mondays to Fridays, and all services on Saturdays, because a double-decker bus is needed for the remainder of the trips as they are linked with school services. The diversion route for these journeys is as follows: Crown Lane, Scholes Bank, Lever Park Avenue, Fernhead Avenue, Green Lane, Darley Street, Lever Park Avenue, Scholes Bank, Lee Lane and Church Street. The operators given assurances that they will make every effort to serve the full route whenever possible. I do hope this is a step in the right direction, and we will continue conversations with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haslam, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you both. The next question is in the name of Councillor Sylvester, and it's for the Leader of the Council. Councillor Sylvester.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The Conservative administration claimed it wanted to be open and transparent. However, this is far from the truth. One example is the length of time it is taking to upload full council meetings and committee meetings to the council's YouTube channel. Why does it take weeks for this to occur? Why does the Conservative administration not wish the public of Bolton to watch these meetings as soon as they have been recorded? Will they commit to them being uploaded within 2 days of each meeting being held, either on the council's YouTube channel or website? Other councils are doing this without any problem. So what is the problem here in Bolton? And why is Councillor Greenhouse delaying these recordings being made available to the public? Madam Mayor, how strange that in the past hour since this council meeting started, the budget meeting of the council, held on Wednesday the 17th of February, a whole month ago, has just been uploaded. However, Planning Committee held on Thursday the 18th of February and the Place Scrutiny Committee held on Tuesday the 23rd of February have still not been uploaded. Why are these meetings not available to the public to watch? What is going on with this Conservative administration? And when will these meetings be available to watch? And when will this very own council meeting, which we're all participating in at the moment, be available to watch? I hope not weeks and weeks as it is taking. I can see the Leader of the Council nodding in agreement with what I am saying. So I hope to hear a positive answer. How are you going to resolve this, Councillor Greenhouse? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sylvester. Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My head was not nodding at all, Richard. You must have pre-written that question. I can assure you there was no nodding going on, but I will confirm to everyone that Councillor Greenhouse is not delaying these recordings at all. In fact, it has been something that Councillor Greenhouse has himself been very, very concerned about himself, and officers will confirm this, that we as administration have been very disappointed at the way the system has worked, and I am assured, and I will tell the council exactly as what I have been told, that these delays have been due to license issues for software, which have now been resolved. And I am delighted, as I hope others will be, that our systems can become now much more efficient and effective, and we can upload these very important meetings, as Councillor Sylvester indicates, can be uploaded. We have a different system to the rest of GM in terms of our live streaming, and it's certainly something that needs addressing, and it's something that is being addressed, and we are looking at a model that is done in other boroughs, the .gov model, which is a lot more, seems to be a lot more effective and certainly a lot easier to simply upload. So it is an issue that we have been concerned about, and we have been chasing. So I do want to make that very clear. And he is right. There has been a priority now, as it does finally seem to have been resolved, and we are hopefully going to get the backlog cleared and get onto a much more effective system. And certainly once we get to a level pegging, I would hope that we would be able to totally adhere to the what he says should be the norm, which should be the norm. It should be that we would expect, hopefully, that somebody would take charge, and that tomorrow, for example, the day after meetings take place, there's no reason why these meetings should not be live and available to be viewed. So it has been a frustration, but there is no delay. I don't know where in Councillor Sylvester's head he believes that it does us any advantage by not having these meetings on stream. We would love to see as many people as possible, the residents of this town, see how the Labour Party perform in some of these meetings, or how they don't perform. And I draw, as a question I asked before, on the budget scrutiny, where Councillor Sylvester never even asked a question.
He's rattled again.
Scrutiny. Well, I'm just only pointing out, I've nothing to hide here. What I want the public to see, how the Labour Party or how they lack of response that the Labour Party give in many meetings they attend. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Here, David.
Could I ask you, please, could I ask your indulgence to turn your microphones off? We've been doing extremely well up to now with everybody speaking when they should be speaking. It's really difficult for me to hear because I'm hearing a multitude of voices. And when this does go out live stream, councillors, it will not sound and look very good. Okay, so can you keep your discipline? You're doing extremely well up to now. Keep calm, everybody. Thank you. And indulge me, please. Thank you. The next question is in the name of Councillor Cunningham, and again, it's for the leader of the council. Thank you, Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the leader is aware, flooding at Preston-Lee in Kersley first occurred on Boxing Day in 2015 under the previous administration, with residents assured it was a once-in-a-100-year occurrence and nothing more was done. 5 years later, in February 2020, flooding occurred again, by which time the first Conservative administration in Bolton for nearly 40 years was in place. As many know, I have highlighted the issue everywhere I can, including the North West Regional Flood and Coastal Committee, and been continually pushing the Council and the Environment Agency and other partner agencies to deliver permanent flood defences for the people of Preston-Lee at every opportunity. I also highlighted the need for the fitting of flat valves to stop flooding through the drainage system to be done as quickly as possible and not left until the permanent defences are delivered. Thankfully, these were done in recent months and helped to avert flooding in January 21 when the river levels rose again. There was a slight panic, of course, when a drain blockage caused some local road flooding, but I was able to have a drain cleaner drafted in to remove the blockage and clean up all the excess water. And I would like to use this opportunity to place on record my thanks to the team who worked tirelessly through this, what was actually Storm Christoph, to remove that water and give the residents free access again. Although much has been done by this administration since February 2020, the fact remains that construction of the permanent defences will not begin until 2023, and the residents of Preston-Lee continue to live in fear. Can the leader of the council give an assurance to the residents that we are continuing to push for further engagement with the Minister for Environment on this issue on their behalf? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham, for your question. I know it's a hugely important issue to you and the residents of Kersley that this matter reaches some resolution and has progress. Senior officers from Bolton Council and the Environment Agency, including the new regional director, held a meeting on the 9th of March. And discussions included an update on the proposals at Preston-Lee and explored the options to accelerate the current programme. The EA have committed to look at all options to reduce the timescales and seek alternative funding to support the early confirmation of the business case to carry out these much needed local works. Council officers will continue the regular dialogue with the EA to ensure they fully understand our concerns for the residents of Preston, and the Council will impress on ministers at any opportunity the importance of this scheme to Bolton. And I have been promised by the department that a visit, once social distancing and we can get back to some degree of normality, we can get representatives of the department and even hopefully a minister or junior minister up to see the problems firsthand in Kersley, and we are doing our very, very best to pursue that course of action once we can, the guidance and guidelines allow us to facilitate such an event. But thank you very much for the question, Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you very much for the answer. It's quite encouraging, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Chief Exec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next item of business is questions under Standing Order 9(c).
And the question is in the name of Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Council. Is the spokesperson aware of the formula used to ensure that Bolton gets its fair share of police officers within the Greater Manchester total? Given that the Greater Manchester Police Force is in special measures, can he explain how he is holding the elected mayor to account on police numbers? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Muslim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor McGowan, for your question. I'm pleased to say that Greater Manchester Police has been bolstered by an additional 266 officers since the government launched the major police recruitment drive over a year ago. The addition of these new officers brings the total number of police across Greater Manchester up to 6,787, meaning there are now more frontline officers on our streets to keep the public safe, with GMP having the second highest police officer numbers in the country, only being behind the Metropolitan Police. With the latest figures I have, Bolton was benefiting from 300 officers and 50 detectives, who all have been working incredibly hard to serve the people of our towns, as well as each ward now having a named neighbourhood beat officer. We also benefit from task forces that work on things ranging from speeding and OCGs, or organised crime groups for those that don't watch Line of Duty. And since the launch of the government's recruitment campaign 1 year ago, a total of 6,620 extra officers have joined police forces across England and Wales, which is supported by a near £20 million increase to GMP's budget. And these statistics confirm that the government remains fully on track to meet its manifesto commitment of recruiting 20,000 extra officers by 2023, and has hit the target of recruiting 6,000 new officers by March 2021, well ahead of schedule. And the new statistics also show that the police workforce overall is now more diverse than ever before, with 10.2% of new recruits identifying as Black, Asian and minority ethnic, with 9,871 of all officers now being from these groups. And this recruitment drive is at the centre of the government's commitment to back the police with more resources, powers and support to keep the public and their communities safe. It's disappointing, however, that Labour just do not have a positive track on policing. Labour's shadow Home Secretary has voted against boosting police funding at every opportunity. Nick Thomas-Symonds MP voted against the police funding settlements in 2016, 17, 18 and 19 and refused to back it again in 2020, over which time police funding has increased by £4 billion. And as for Greater Manchester being in special measures, the HMIC reports into Greater Manchester Police detailed that GMP's performance at senior levels have been going down each year and had issued warnings consistently since 2016, coincidentally the year that Andy Burnham took charge. And it's such a shame that the Greater Manchester Mayor has allowed this to take place, given the fact it damages the confidence that residents have in Greater Manchester Police. At the Police, Fire and Crime panel, I always fight for Bolton to get its fair share, because I believe we must do all we can to give the residents in Bolton comfort and ensure that we are adequately staffed and protected. And with that, we also see that Bolton has received the second highest allocation of funding in the Community Safety Partnerships, being second to only Manchester. I'd like to end by saying thank you to all the policemen and women who've continued to work incredibly hard during the COVID-19 pandemic and who continue to do so day and night. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Chief Exec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next item of business is to deal with the minutes of the Planning Committee.
Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the council, I beg to move the proceedings of the Planning Committee on the 18th of February and the 1st of March 2021 be approved.
Councillor Ayoub.
Madam Mayor, members of council, I formally second the proceeding of Planning Committee meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Are these approved?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Chief Exec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next item of business is to deal with the minutes of the scrutiny committees.
Councillor Sylvester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and it's my pleasure to move that the minutes of the meetings of the following two committees be approved. The Place Scrutiny Committee, which was held on the 23rd of February 2021, and the joint meeting of the Corporate and External Issues Scrutiny Committee and Place Scrutiny Committee held on the 2nd of March 2021. I formally move, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sylvester. Councillor Hornby.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I formally move to second the motion.
Councillor Wilkinson has indicated that he would like to speak. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I had intended to try and put an amendment down on scrutiny committee in relation to the Place Scrutiny Committee, which had a very good presentation by officers. Unfortunately, the powers that be have said my amendment wasn't acceptable for the minutes, so we'll have to place that on another day. It is in relation to the presentation, and what I thought was a concerning continuing situation, which has continued on and off for years, but given the current situation of extremely major cuts to the system, to the council.
Councillor Wilkinson, I'm sorry, can I just interject? Do you want a discussion about a debate, or are you making a comment?
I'm commenting on the minutes, Madam Mayor, because I was told that I wasn't allowed to put an amendment forward, which would allow council to vote on it. But if I would just continue my comment, I'll get to the point.
That's fine. I'm just getting opinion. Okay, yeah. That's fine. Carry on. Please carry on.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, for the clarification. It was in relation to the presentation, which was very good in many parts, but it also highlighted an area where the council is still, unfortunately, in my opinion, giving free advice to major developers, and that includes the likes of Peel, which residents in West Orton and Norwich will be well aware of, Persimmon, Bellway, Jones, etc. Major developers who have deep pockets and vast resources, and that advice is given freely, and hopefully the council will move to seal that particular loophole and possibly change to charging for advice. It is in comparison though to, say, ordinary members of the public or residents group who oppose major applications such as art or, say, the Stock Parks residents group, who don't have that access to information and advice from the council because they're opposing major applications. So I would hope that we can revisit this scrutiny. I will be placing an amendment on the scrutiny minutes, which I've been told is the correct place to do so, because I believe that all members of the council will want to see the ending of free advice to major developers to take place as soon as possible, given the current financial situation we are in, and also that it is a one-sided system in favour of developers. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to comment.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry I had to clarify. Councillor Weatherby, as you chaired that meeting, would you like to make any comment? Sorry, Councillor Weatherby, as you chaired that particular meeting that Councillor Wilkinson has commented on, would you like to make any comment? Put what, sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Weatherby, I believe you're having a problem with the internet. Carry on. Yes, sorry. Yeah, okay, thank you for that. So as Councillor Weatherby is unable due to technology problems to speak, I think that we move to the vote. Sorry, I'm just finding my papers. So could I ask members to agree the minutes?
Aye.
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 Aye. Yeah.
Says that.
Aye.
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 Thank you for that. I feel like I'm being serenaded here. Thank you for that. The motion is carried. Chief Exec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next item of business is to consider motions under Standing Order 4. The first motion is a motion in the name of Councillor Peel relating to council finances.
Councillor Peel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hopefully all members have had time to read this motion, and hopefully all members cannot find any paragraph within this motion that they could possibly disagree with, but we'll see. I'm sure other members will wish to speak on particular sections or indeed the whole of the motion. And to the Conservative councillors or their ex-councillors, I would be really interested to hear your views on why you may think the government hasn't even had the common courtesy and decency to respond to the motion that we passed unanimously, calling for them to be flexible on the setting of balanced budgets in emergency situations. Madam Mayor, the motion was originally intended to be debated after the council budget meeting in February. It was Labour's intention to give members the opportunity to back an alternative finance strategy if they had rejected the Conservatives' budget. They didn't reject the Conservative budget, but this motion is still as relevant now as it was then. It would have allowed those members who supported the Conservative budget to flip-flop their arguments and, whilst keeping a straight face, back an alternative strategy. Because I fully expected that in February, had this motion been heard, then it would have been passed. The same members from the minor parties and possibly even the Conservative group would have seen no hypocrisy whatsoever in supporting this motion line by line, despite passing the Tory budget. To Councillor Hayes, we didn't misvote, Councillor Hayes. Please take a look at your own fudge position before you come out with statements like that. Because the reality is, you shouldn't have been so eager to pass that budget. Oh yes, there was lots of wringing of hands and comments of, it is with a heavy heart as I do this. But they still went on to capitulate, to cave in at the first hurdle. This motion even gives some sympathy to those members by the use of the phrase government is forcing elected members into doing this. But however the term forced is applied both nationally and locally, you did accept the scare tactics that were placed on your heads. You were told by politicians and others that if you did not pass this budget an army of faceless bureaucrats would descend upon our town, cold and unsympathetic, who would rip the budget proposals to pieces and pass something even worse. You accepted that without question. The truth is that was nonsense, and all those who perpetuated that myth knew so. The truth is that if the budget had not been passed, we would have had to have several more weeks in order to work through the problem. The truth is that there were other councils who took a bold and principled stance, and as a result, they received more government funding. And the truth is, if anyone here seriously thinks that the Tory government of Westminster would have put their only fledgling GM council into special measures at the first hurdle, then you clearly haven't been paying attention. It was never going to happen. If we'd have kept our nerve and held the government's feet to the fire for a bit longer, the likelihood is that we would have received more cash to help our ailing services. Now, I'm not saying that Labour would have then backed a new Tory budget, but what I am saying is that Labour and all those who could have supported us could have walked away with our heads held high in the knowledge that we truly did our best, right to the deadline, and as a result, got a better settlement. Now, I guess we will never know. So when people say, quite incorrectly, well, Labour never put in an alternative, I say this. Yes, of course we did. Our proposals contained within this motion is a straightforward alternative strategy. A strategy of not allowing the government to treat us in this disrespectful, immoral and unjust manner, to face them down, to say we demand and deserve more financial help. And we think that the government would have listened, and we believe that our cuts target would have been reduced somewhat as a result. There may have also been some give on the issue of spreading out the pain, but we never know now. But what we were never going to do is put in an amendment that altered just one or two things in a budget, but kept the grand total of 37 million intact. Unlike other groups, we were never about swapping the cuts from one department to another and feeling that that satisfied our wider opposition to the manner in which the government have treated us. So this motion is before you now. It is just as relevant now as it was in February. Members here who voted for the Conservative budget do not have the opportunity now, by voting for this, to undo your votes and undo the damage that you undoubtedly will cause. But perhaps by backing this now, you do have the opportunity to agree with our stance on this, and more importantly, set some clear parameters for when we have to go through all of this again next year, and again for as long as we have this austerity driven anti-local council government. Madam Mayor, I urge all members to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peel. Councillor Zaman.
Madam Mayor, I formally second the motion and reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion is before Council and open to debate. And the first speaker is Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me firstly say that we agree with everything in this motion. We also agreed with the suggestions in the earlier motion that Councillor Peel spoke about to allow deficit budgets to be set, which is what happens in many other organisations. It's a pity that Labour nationally didn't agree with what Councillor Peel was saying, because we understand that the leader of Barnsley, for example, who we all recently met, was very much against pushing that motion forward, so it wouldn't get the support. I agree with Councillor Peel, there's no excuse for the government not even responding. I think that is discourteous in the extreme. And Councillor Peel will know that we actually assisted him to get this motion and the earlier one further up the agenda by agreeing to some of our motions dropping down at great considerable cost to us, let me say. There's one important thing missing from this motion. What does Councillor Peel suggest the council does about it? Because although it expresses a shock horror, it doesn't actually propose any course of action. There may not be a lot that we can do about it, But I would argue that the amendment we moved in the budget debate does at least give one forceful outlet. And we've already heard from the leader of the council what he is suggesting we might do about it, and we agreed to do that fairly quickly. While mentioning that, it should be recorded that the first time in my memory, the official opposition failed to even put an amendment forward on the budget debate. Now, it didn't have to be a minor tinkering. It could be an amendment saying we reject this budget. That would have allowed Councillor Peel to have had an unlimited speech. Perhaps it's a good thing for most of us that he didn't get that, but never mind. He would have had the ability rather than just a 5-minute slot in that main debate. And they just voted against, just totally negative. They also, unlike Falmouth and Kersley First, unlike Horwich and Blackrod First Independents, unlike UKIP and unlike ourselves, failed to engage at all to try and mitigate some of the horrendous effects of this budget. We engaged and got the enforced pay cut for all staff dropped, and the Conservative to support, to their credit, a very strong amendment against their own government. Councillor Greenhalgh made more effort to engage with the opposition than has happened previously. The cynic in me wonders whether that was more from necessity than belief, but credit where credit's due, he did make a genuine effort, and I also know he made many approaches through the channels he has to his government to try and get more money. And the result was, I think he was as frustrated almost as anybody else in this council at what we had to do. Labour, as I say, failed to engage at all. For a Labour councillor to wait until the budget council to express his concern about cuts to planning enforcement when he failed to mention it any earlier, including at the scrutiny committee, which he chairs, that's a dereliction of duty to the people he represents. What I fail to understand, and perhaps Councillor Peel can enlighten me when he sums up, is why they voted against our amendment. Was it because they were against condemning the government for failing to honour its promises? Was it because they were against trying to get more sources of capital for roads? Was it because they did not wish to thank staff for their dedication during the pandemic and record their relief that staff would not, after all, have an enforced pay cut? Was it because they did not wish to make strong representations to the Prime Minister, the Secretary of State, the LGA and the borough's MPs? Labour seemed content to abandon any control over the budget by the council, instead handing it over to government-appointed bureaucrats to do their worst. Now, Councillor Peel talks about there would have been several meetings. It might have been. We had until the 11th of March to come up with a legal budget. I think that was the date, the 11th of March. Do we really think that we'd have made any significant change in that time? Do you really think that if it had gone to the bureaucrats that they would not have come back and made the staff cuts in pay? An easy cut, one which I, for one, am delighted we managed to stop. Comments made earlier this week by Councillor McKeown at an executive member meeting seem to indicate that Labour will be opposing all savings without putting forward viable alternatives. That level of irresponsibility shows that Labour is still not fit to run this council. I'd hoped that under Councillor Peel some progress is being made. Apparently not. However, as I said, we will look at the wording of this motion. We will support it. We think it's worth supporting. It's pretty toothless, and it's aimed to let Labour off the hook for actually making constructive comments about the budget. Madam Mayor, I urge members to vote for this budget, but with possibly holding their nose at the time. Sorry, this motion, not this budget.
Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I have to say, this motion by Councillor Peel is rather disingenuous. It's speculative. It's too little too late. Labour had the same opportunity as every other party to propose an alternative budget, but they deliberately didn't do. This is misleading and gambling with people's lives. Pure showboating, in my opinion, in the run-up to the local elections on the 6th of May. And I trust that the good people of the borough will not be taken in by it. If hindsight were foresight, we'd all be millionaires, but that's not how it works in real life. I'm afraid I cannot support this motion, and I would encourage others to also not support this motion.
The next speaker that's indicated is Councillor McKeon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the Council, I think the key concept we need to examine in this debate is the one of responsibility. How are we to define it? The Conservative administration and its allies argued in the budget debate that it's the responsible thing to do to pass a budget that will take out £35 million from the provision of council services. As Councillor Peeler said, they told us they didn't want to do it. They did it with a heavy heart. They didn't come into politics to do it, but they did it. The consequences they admitted were horrendous. Looking at the options, that's very, very true. And that's why, as Councillor Hayes has mentioned at a recent exec member meeting, I commented that many of these cuts we will oppose. In the coming 2 years, we may see the closure of libraries and leisure centres, and money will be taken from the budgets of children's and adult services. Is doing what you don't want to do, reducing services, the responsible thing to do? Councillor Greenhouse has often admitted that local government has taken a disproportionate share of the austerity cuts and has taken the responsible line of lobbying his own government to halt them, but to no avail. We argued that now is the time to take that sense of responsibility one step further and say to the government, enough is enough. As a council, we have a prime responsibility, and that's to our residents. Already over the past 10 years, they've had to cope with an extraordinary level of cuts. Governments have forced us to rely more and more for revenue on a regressive tax, council tax. And once again this year, rather than fund social care from national resources, they expect local authorities to apply the social care precept. Is that responsibility? We want government to show responsibility, but they'll only do so if faced by political reality. As long as councils continue to form balanced budgets, as we did last month, as in this council, they will continue to abdicate their responsibility to adequately finance local government. They even escape the responsibility to keep their word. Robert Jenrick assured councils he would reimburse them for funds used during this pandemic. So we estimate he owes us £18 million. So where's that? At the Budget Council, I and others mentioned the 4 councils who've gone to government for help. The information that I have now is that that number is 12, with Croydon being the latest. Wouldn't the responsible thing to do to join these councils and encourage others to do so, to present government with a credible political challenge? Boris Johnson is no stranger to U-turns. The responsible action of a council, particularly one such as ours in a northern industrial area, more badly affected by austerity than those in the leafy southern counties, is to fight for what's right, a fair financial settlement. One of the more amusing sights of last month's council meeting was a series of mini-party political broadcasts by exec members telling us and viewers online about all their successes. It occurred to me that a casual viewer might wonder at the concern being shown at the severity of the proposed cuts. If things are going so well, why not cut even more? On the night, Councillor Newall mentioned the philosopher Voltaire, and I was reminded of his most famous line in Candide, all's for the best in the best of possible worlds. But those words were a satirical comment on the false optimism of some of the thinkers of his time. There is a time for optimism, but not at this point in our social and economic history. The responsible reaction to our budget should be one of pessimism. The passing of the budget was irresponsible. And turning to the Liberal Democrats, what sort of sense of responsibility inspires councillors to abstain on such a crucial vote, one that will affect residents for years to come? It was an extraordinary decision. Liberal Democrats, Councillor Hayes again tonight, have criticised us for not putting forward an amendment. Well, putting forward an amendment isn't a constitutional necessity. but a convention. The Liberal Democrats did put forward some amendments, one a populist one, but a rather trivial one, and then another which gained some support. However, having been passed, it became part of the substantive motion that they then didn't support, but abstained. More irresponsibility. The responsible thing for this council to do is to continue to fight for the people of Bolton and to say to this government, enough is enough. Thank you.
Rubbish. Here, Kevin, here.
Come on, councillors, can you all desist from shouting, please? The next speaker is Councillor Howarth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members. The view of the smaller alliance parties went in the press, and we heard it at the budget meeting, involved saying how services are delivered must be questioned and reviewed, and if there are better ways which meet the standards but cost less at the council, then the council has a responsibility to adopt those savings. The above explanation, though, just does not add up to the planned cuts at all. I mean, the cuts that you voted for are not about services being redesigned to reduce costs. I mean, the cuts are about cutting whole parts of services and cutting whole jobs. And what the first parties and others that voted for the budget did not explain is what would you have agreed to keep what you made out to be the bogeymen coming up here from London and taking over the council. So 45 million, 85 million, there was nothing about that. You didn't say anything profound. You didn't explain who you are and what you believe in and what your views on money matters are. Also in the press, there was the business that not supporting the budget was a big no in terms of what private investors would think. Well, we're talking here about medium-sized, large-sized home building companies and sizable, well-known real estate investment companies, but they are familiar with how local councils in England operate. Up and down England, thousands and millions of pounds of their investment go on. Town centres get developed. They know councillors have got politics to do with government. And if relationships are good with members they do their business with, they know that a few elected members are also fighting fires in the political aspects of the job. There are people in the country, you know, who back the demise of elected councillors. They believe it would be fine with just local government officers. And they make the sort of case like that, that the elected member system is in the way of smooth partnership working. So I was concerned to hear that as something that was put forward as a reason for needing to support the budget. The position some alliance members were taking, it lacks strength of argument, really. It's like you just wanted to support the party in power. Nothing you said then and in the press were lines of inquiry, were new questions, were new points of interest that we needed to consider. The biggest letdown, though, this was the line where you were saying we can do both, can we not? We can pass the cuts budget and we can carry on working at getting better finance. You wanted to do both. You wanted to get more COVID compensation finance. Look at that. Look at spread of the collection fund. Get some opportunity for some amount of deficit. But you have a mixture of not recognising and not understanding. Surely that's what that is, because the evidence in England, the evidence overwhelmingly shows the opposite of what you were saying, what you are saying about that position. The evidence that we're faced with is, and what's been going on in a number of councils, 12 as a minimum, double figures and rising in our country, where government have come to agreement on local budget arrangements. And the evidence is go into negotiation with the government, look at what councils have been achieving. We've heard a few names of councils tonight. There's a lot of detail on that. You know, even at our budget meeting, there was no slam dunk to sign off the cuts budget that night. You know, someone even said, We have to pass the budget on the night because everything is set up. Direct debits for council tax is set up. The printing of the bills, it's all set up. I just thought how shockingly nonsense all that seemed to be in England. 60 councillors going into a room to vote. Who knows which way it's going to go every year? Procedures of the council can be set up to accommodate that the organisation has elected members. Most organisations in England, responsible organisations, work with variance and contingency, and faced with an argument like that, it felt like a pretty weak picture as to why you just wanted to go ahead and vote for a very harsh budget. Alliance parties were sold a well-meaning ruse that the despicable unfair budget must be passed. And in many ways, perhaps you sold the ruse to yourselves as well. People who come up with lists of persuasive argument and persuade people, well, they get some respect from me for achievement, even though what they're actually doing likely makes me feel nauseous, to be honest. It's the outcome that makes me feel nauseous, but certainly if somebody's had an ability to persuade people, then there you have it. Deficit budgets. Plenty of businesses do not balance their budgets every year while still remaining a going concern, and neither do other public sector bodies like the NHS for years now. Solace, S-O-L-A-C-E, is the company that represents the senior managers of local government. And they say the government should consider allowing councils to carry forward budget deficits like the NHS can over a limited period of time, say 5 years, before returning to a balanced position. This technical cost-free change would provide councils.
Councillor Howard, I'm sorry to interrupt your flow, but you've had over 5 minutes. Can you just draw it to an end, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
It would provide councils with a powerful tool to manage their finances more holistically, and would therefore enable local authorities to avoid making drastic cuts to vital services. That's the position of the brilliant Solace organisation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. The next speaker is Councillor Newall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, fellow councillors. I do want to speak in support of this motion, and I will do. But before I do, I'd just like to take issue with Councillor Peel's view from the moral high ground. With regard to the budget meeting, nobody wanted to vote for that budget. Nobody wanted to vote for it at all. And by engaging with it, we got something out of it. We got something out of it for the town hall staff, and I'm sure that town hall staff are very grateful for the intervention of people like us that stopped them having a 3-day pay cut. I am not confident, like some members seem to be, that the government wouldn't have sent the commissioners in, and I wasn't prepared to gamble on that, because when you gamble on things like that, you are gambling with people's services, people's jobs. So we didn't gamble that the worst wouldn't happen. So, as usual, shouting from the sidelines, it's very self-satisfying, but it doesn't really do anybody but those that are shouting any good. Having said that, I do support this. I'm not surprised at all that this government have failed to keep the promises. They do so on a daily basis. They do it with the country. They have no faith. They have no integrity. They have no long-term plan for the country or any kind of joined-up thinking. It's just quick smash and grab initiatives to benefit themselves, their donors and their supporters. Johnson is proving on a daily basis that he's unfit for any kind of public office, never mind the highest in the land. We all know what he said he wanted to do to business, and it would seem to me he's got the same kind of dark desires for local government finance. I do support exploring a deficit budget, and I have spoken in support of this before. We're living in unprecedented times, and we should be brave enough in this country now to at least commit to looking at alternative models, and I do agree with that. A deficit budget is especially helpful in times of recession. It helps generate additional demands and boost the rate of economic growth. Excessive expenditure can improve the employment rate, which in turn results in an increase in demands for goods and services, which in turn helps to revive the economy. So I do believe that every alternative should be at least explored. And so with that in mind, I do support your council appeal and I do support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newall. I've now got 7 people now who wish to speak. So I suggest that we allow those people, but I'm not going to take any more names to add to my list at present. So please do not indicate you want to speak in the future. Okay, so the next person to speak is Councillor Cox.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We're still trying to work out in our group which genius in the Labour Party came up with the idea of running this council meeting on the issue of transparency. I mean, of all the things, the thing that lost them power is the thing that they're trying to run on now. Councillor Peel talks about the budget meeting. Councillor Hayes has already mentioned he's the first leader of the opposition, major opposition party, not to come up with a single contribution to the budget, not a single one. He said when he first became leader of the Labour group that he was going to start listening to the people of Bolton. I'm just wondering what they said to him. Clearly they didn't say very much, because when it came to the set piece debate of the council, the one that most people are interested in, the Labour Party hadn't a single thing to contribute, not a single word. And I think that speaks volumes, Madam Mayor, about where the Labour Party stand at the moment. Just on the bigger issue, Madam Mayor, of public expenditure, I don't think that the public is fooled. The public know that all spending is taxpayer spending. And if there is one lesson the Labour Party has never learned, that is the public expects any government to act as careful custodians of their money. And the public do not think the Labour Party, or do not trust the Labour Party with their money. We know this because since 2010, the Labour Party has lost 4 elections on the trot. 4 times the Labour Party has offered spending for everybody in every area, and it's been rejected, and still they cannot learn this simple lesson. Look, Madam Mayor, I and other exec members have real concerns about the capacity within the local authority to deliver the services that we need to deliver. We have political concerns about the centralisation of power over what should be local decisions. But the public will not fail to notice the huge investments coming to our town in local services, and which dwarf in many respects the reductions we've had to make in our revenue budget. Already on Boxing Day, Farnworth got a huge Christmas present, over £13 million. 2 weeks ago, Bolton heard it was going to get nearly £24 million from the town's funds. Those 2 announcements alone add up to more than the cuts in our revenue budget. We will also see 2 brand new secondary schools built in the borough, another £30 million of investment coming into Bolton. We've received notice recently that we're going to get at £5 million of brownfield funding for Moor Lane and Central Street and other areas. The recent budget announcement on the Levelling Up Fund, made just a few weeks ago, means that we will be bidding as a town for 3 separate grants of over £20 million each across the borough. And on top of that, Madam Mayor, and very much the cherry on the cake, a bid is being prepared for over £150 million to remodel and rebuild Bolton Hospital. All these decisions, Madam Mayor, in most democracies would be local decisions taken at a local level and go through a local budget. Unfortunately, that's not the case in the UK, but I suspect, Madam Mayor, when people see this level of funding going into Bolton, they'll care very little as to who is spending their money, providing it's spent wisely on the services that they need. Madam Mayor, save for a handful of wards in the centre of Bolton, the only way you get elected to this chamber these days is by making it absolutely clear you are not Labour. Locally, people feel let down. Nationally, they still feel bitter about how you misled them in 2017 when the Labour Party said that they would back Brexit and then did nothing of the sort. In fact, quite the opposite. But most of all, Madam Mayor, the Labour Party will not fix the mess it's got into until it apologises for the man that they tried to get elected as British Prime Minister on 2 occasions, until Keir Starmer is prepared to stand up and expel the hard left from his party. Labour is going nowhere locally and it's going nowhere nationally. And no amount of listening from Councillor Peel will revive the Labour Party's fortunes. This motion, Madam Mayor, does not for one line acknowledge the massive amount of investment heading Bolton's way.
Councillor Cox, I'm sorry to stop you in full flow, but you've had 5 minutes. Could you wind your speech up, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The investment that's coming into Bolton will create thousands of jobs. It will support local businesses, and it will provide a huge shot in the arm for the people of Bolton. Madam Mayor, it will surprise no one, not least Councillor Peel, that we won't be supporting this motion. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that.
Hear, hear.
I'm not sure who that was. I did say after Councillor Newell spoke that I couldn't take any more speakers because I've 7 more people, 5 I had, plus Councillor Zaman and Councillor Peel to reply. So I'm sorry, I just can't take any more because we will run badly over time and we have got other issues to discuss. So the next speaker is Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the Council. Rather like the budget meeting 4 weeks ago, we have a presentation from the Labour Party living in some fictitious, hypothetical world where things are not going to be as they are in reality. There is some view that everything can be done differently. Councillor Peel started off by saying, we think, we feel, 2 phrases he used. Well, of course, the previous leader of the Labour Party was thinking and feeling he was going to win a general election. We know what happened on that one. Councillor Peel, in his motion, fails to pick up on the fact that the Labour Party had implemented, during their control, a 2-year budget, but then failed to deliver on the very policies on which that budget had been predicated, leaving a further hole to be filled by the new administration. Labour's failure to support policies, as recently a few months ago, on the Meals on Wheels, on halving nursery, just proved that they were not prepared and not fit to lead this council. Talk about deficit budgets. That's well and good. It's a concept. It may well be that it's worth exploring, but it is not within the Local Government Act permissible. We've got to live in the real world. The real world says that if this council or any council fails to set a legal budget, the finance officer, the deputy chief executive in this case, borough treasurer, has got to report that fact, professionally bound to report that fact. And the Local Government Act, 1992 Local Government Act, which defines that rule, is very clear. If the Labour Party thought it was so malicious and so unfair and improper, for heaven's sake, it was in government from 1997. It could have amended that legislation, but failed to do so. If the Labour Party thought, if Labour MPs thought that the budget settlement for Bolton and the other authorities in the northwest and across the country was so unfair, why did they not vote against the settlement when it went to the House of Commons earlier this year? The fact is, the Labour Party want to present to the public their heart on their sleeve that they don't want it, they're not going to do it. But yet, as has been said earlier, the first time ever, a leader of the opposition failed to put forward an alternative budget in this council. It's damnable, it's disgraceful, it's a complete abdication of opposition and their position.
Utter nonsense.
The fact of the matter is, The fact of the matter is, Madam Mayor, and I'm not going to be put off by spurious comments from afar.
Can you please let Councillor Walsh finish? Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The fact of the matter is, Madam Mayor, this council had an obligation to set a legal budget. Other councils in the region, adjoining councils, neighbouring councils, had to make massive cuts and set a legal budget, and they did so. And I didn't hear the Labour leaders of those councils saying, we can't do it, we're not going to do it, we're going to sit on our hands and not present a budget. This Labour Party is the only opposition that I know of that failed to put forward a budget. It's disgraceful, and to try and smoke and mirrors with a motion of this nature from Councillor Peel, quite frankly, is that abdication of power to which I referred earlier.
The next speaker is Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry for the delay. I forgot to put the camera back on. Thank you, Madam Mayor, again, and members of the council. I'll be fairly brief, but before I do, I have to just take exception with something that Councillor Walsh has just said. I have great respect for Councillor Walsh, and I've worked with him for years and will do so in the future. But Councillor Walsh says we have to live in the real world. Well, I can't recollect how many times I've said that in various council meetings, but the fact is the council does not live in the real world. Local government financing is not the real world, and I really wish that we did live in the real world. If we did, then this motion won't even be presented, I don't think. So for many years, members and even officers will know that for many years I've criticised whatever administration was in charge for not exploring more radical solutions to achieving savings. And year after year, we simply trim away at the edges, cut a bit more off services, a bit less grass cutting and a bit less adult social care, when what we should be doing is looking at more radical solutions. I didn't vote for the budget at the budget meeting. I abstained. And I abstained, perhaps I should have voted against it with hindsight, but I abstained because the budget was the same as every other year. It was just trimming bits here and bits there. So I have a lot of belief in this motion. I really wish this had been presented perhaps as an amendment to the budget, because I would have certainly have voted for it then. But I believe this motion is sound, and in particular the strategy of deficit budgeting. I accept Councillor Walsh's statement that it's not perhaps within our power, but nothing will ever be within our power if we don't make a stand at some point. So I'm going to vote for this motion, Madam Mayor, and I'd urge other members to do so on the grounds that it's a more radical solution than the usual just trimming a bit here and there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next speaker is Councillor Warren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I took a little bit of an exception to something that Councillor McKeon said, and that was the championing of Croydon. So Croydon currently has debts of 1.5 billion. It's got a £50 million overspend. If you Google Croydon, it comes up a tale of mismanagement. The rapid review into Croydon Council found failings in governance, financial strategy and commercial investment, which have let the taxpayer and residents being severely let down over a number of years. The government hasn't bailed them out. They've given them a loan of 120 million, and recent reports are saying that they're going to pay back 24 million in interest alone back to the government. They've also made 460 staff redundant in the last few months. The museum will remain closed until 2024 at the earliest. It won't open at all. Children's centres are not reopening, and they've stopped all non-statutory spending unless it's for core services. So I do think it's really kind of unfair to suggest that the strategy that Croydon has kind of gone down, which is one of mismanagement, is correct for Bolton. And they've got a lot of reviews that are coming up, and everything is going through the rapid review panel. So they can't make any decisions, and they cannot spend any money that is not on a statutory service. So I do think it's quite unfair to put that forward as a valid option. Thank you.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'd like to start off by congratulating Councillor Peel on probably becoming the first leader of the major opposition not to present an alternative budget since Bolton has become a metropolitan borough. So well done on that achievement. I'm sure it'll go down in history. Everyone knew that last month's budget, hand on heart, was going to be tough for any party that was going to be in administration, and I'm glad with the support of some very sensible councillors the budget was approved. Whitehall running Bolton Council is fine for the likes of Councillor Howarth, but it's not for councillors like myself. It's our responsibility as elected members of Bolton Council to take the responsibility. So the biggest thing that has been highlighted tonight and last month at the budget meeting is the major opposition's sheer incompetence, led by Councillor Peel. After everything that has happened, still out of touch. Councillor Peel, when you're summing up, I'd like you to tell us the reason why you failed to present an alternative budget, and you wanted to talk about it in a motion afterwards once a decision has been made. I just can't get my head around that. It was your responsibility. You owe it to the electorate. You owe it, more importantly, to the people of Bolton. Councillor Peel, this was your first budget as leader of the major opposition. You shirked that responsibility at the first opportunity. I'm sorry to say, if you were the leader of my group, I would have asked you to resign that night because of the sheer incompetence. 4 general election losses. You've lost half of your councillors in the last few years. You've lost the administration of Bolton Council, but Bolton Labour still out of touch. And long may that continue. Long may that incompetence continue, because it's better for the people of Bolton. I won't be voting for this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right, Councillor Dean, you were the last speaker that I had down. Councillor Zaman, you reserve the right to speak. Are you prepared to speak now?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. All of us understand very well that the COVID-related financial crisis has led to councils across the country facing billions of cuts this year. As a result, a number of local authorities are having to make draconian cuts to key services and jobs. Has the government even acknowledged this crisis? The answer is no. And to be honest, I am not surprised to see this disgraceful treatment, because this government's handling of the pandemic has been a disaster from the start. Ministers have shown themselves unwilling or incapable of learning from mistakes. Councillor Dean mentioned sheer incompetence. Well, Councillor Dean, I'll give you 10 examples of Tory incompetence in government. 1, they failed to maintain the NHS. 10 years of austerity has left the NHS with woefully limited resources when compared with other European economies' healthcare. 2, they failed to prepare for the pandemic. The government was knowingly underprepared for a major pandemic, despite this being the nation's #1 risk for years, and government failed to implement its own 2016 National Pandemic Planning Guidance. Is that not sheer incompetence? 3, they failed to act efficiently on lockdown. 4, they failed to provide adequate protection to the NHS, social care, and other frontline staff. Is that not sheer incompetence? 5, they failed on test and trace. 6, they failed us by choosing herd immunity over a zero COVID strategy. 7, they failed to give us clear and unbiased messaging and advice. When it suited government, Johnson and Hancock repeated they were led by the science, but when advice was politically uncomfortable, it was just set aside. Dominic Cummings' well-publicized drive to Durham Castle to test his eyesight meant that the double standards and outright lies dramatically undermined trust in government advice. 8, they failed us on schools. In December, despite a very serious increase in infection being found in secondary schools, the government overruled local authorities and insisted schools stayed open under threat of legal action, and it completely disregarded the huge efforts by staff and trade unions to attempt to make schools COVID secure. 9, they failed us by awarding contracts to their cronies. The government bypassed our public services and awarded contracts worth a staggering 17.3 billion to their friends in the private sector for PPE and test and trace services and apps which have failed to deliver. 10, they have failed to keep their promise to protect local government. The government
Somebody's muted him.
One of the other councillors has muted you again.
Excuse me, Councillor Zaman.
This is out of order. Yet again, we're switched off.
Somebody has muted you. I don't know who it is. I certainly haven't. Could whoever it is stop doing that, please, because you're elongating the meeting. Councillor Zaman has got a little bit longer to speak. Please allow him to speak. We've allowed everybody else to speak. It's unfair to do this to him. So
Madam Mayor, they have failed to keep their promise to protect local government. The government's failure are truly world-beating. Councillors were told by this Tory government, we will stand by you, we will support you, you get on and do what you need to do. So they did. The councils are now facing bankruptcy or cutting back services, and the government is just standing by this unfolding crisis and is doing absolutely nothing. This attitude is disgraceful and sickening. And Councillor Cox mentioned creation of thousands of jobs through additional investment in Bolton. Councillor Cox, I challenge you, if this is true, please use some of this investment to save over 300 local authority jobs and services that we are going to lose. I second the motion, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you all stop shouting, please? Thank you, Councillor Zaman. The last speaker on this is the mover of the motion, Councillor Peel, with the right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, let's leave it to the viewers to judge the behaviour of some councillors this evening.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I listened to all of the speakers today, and especially the Conservative councillors who said nothing at all. They addressed nothing in the actual motion. They said nothing critical about any line in that motion. They gave no explanation whatsoever as to why they are voting against the motion, because I suspect, as Councillor Allen is now free of the shackles, that many of them actually supported most of, if not all, of the factual statements within the motion, which they have supported in the past. when they've been part of other motions. There's only two councillors I want to really address, and that's Councillor Cox and Councillor Hayes. Councillor Hayes made a misleading statement that the chairman of Sigoma did not support our motion. Now, I have seen an internal officer document, a PowerPoint, that makes this claim. This claim is not true. Sigoma forwarded our motion to other Sigoma members and suggested if it's relevant for them, they should support it. This is something that I'll be taking up separately with the chief exec. In terms of Councillor Hayes, well, you've got a nerve, Councillor Hayes. You really have got a nerve. You clearly didn't read the motion as I'd put down. I explained very, very clearly why we did not put an amendment in, because an amendment like the one that you put in would have kept the top line cuts at 37 million. It would have just tinkered around the edges, but it still would have kept that top line figure of 37 million. And we were very clear in February and very clear now that we would have no part in that. So do not accuse the Labour group of behaving irresponsibly by not supporting your amendment when you got the substantive motion successfully amended and then abstained. How bizarre, how absurd is that? You didn't even support your own amended budget. Lib Dems with buttocks firmly clasped on the fence, as has always been said of them. Now, you see that clock behind me, Councillor Newell, Councillor Hayes, you've got more faces than that clock, because you say one thing and do another. You criticise my motion and say you'll vote for it. You criticise the Tory budget and then abstain. You want it both ways and it will not do. Now, finally, Madam Mayor, in terms of Councillor Cox, well, he's got a bit of a nerve, and Councillor Zaman addressed it quite adequately. But let me just say to Councillor Cox, to paraphrase what you said about the Labour Party, well, there's only a handful of wards on the fringe of this borough that votes Tory. Nobody else wants you. They'll vote for any other party other than you. So if you throw that accusation against Labour, look at yourself. Have a look at your own performance. Councillor Dean in 2004, you were at 20 councillors. You've now reached in 2021 the dizzy heights of 16. You know, you're not. You have bounced along for decades. The people of Bolton don't want you. You're only in power now because the minor parties put you in. And David Greenhalgh is only arguably the most inclusive leader because he runs a coalition. He has to be inclusive. He has to be inclusive. That's the reality of it. Finally, Madam Mayor, I say to Councillor Cox, transparency is not your territory. It is not the sole province of the Tories, because I have been absolutely clear. Rudeness again, Madam Mayor. I have been absolutely clear that Labour, and I have said this quite openly, of course Labour's made mistakes. We're big enough to stand up and say we have made mistakes. We could have done things better. Our mistakes were in the past. Your current anti-transparency and anti-democrat mistakes are in the present. You're doing it now. I urge all members to vote for this budget. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Hear, hear.
Rubbish. What a load of rubbish.
Could you all switch your mics off, please?
Yeah.
Or we're not going to be able to take the vote properly. Okay. The Chief Executive will now take the name vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, councillors, last vote of the evening. Councillor Baines.
Against.
Councillor Connor.
Against.
Councillor Cox.
Against.
Councillor Cunningham.
Against.
Councillor Dean.
Against.
Councillor Fairclough.
Against.
Councillor Galloway.
Against.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Against.
Councillor Haslam.
Against.
Councillor Hewitt.
Against.
Councillor Morgan.
Absolutely against.
Councillor Muslim.
Against.
Councillor Radcliffe.
Against.
Councillor Walsh.
Against.
Councillor Warren.
Against.
Councillor Waters.
Against.
Councillor Adia.
For.
Councillor Ayub.
For.
Councillor Donahee.
Absolutely for.
Councillor Evans.
Absolutely for.
Councillor Howarth.
For.
Councillor Ibrahim.
For.
Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Karam.
For.
Councillor McKeon.
For.
Councillor Mystery.
For.
Councillor Morris.
For.
Councillor Murray. Okay, Councillor Murray is indicated in chat for. Councillor Peel.
For.
Councillor Sherrington.
I had to find 155 million. I'm not going to find any
Councillor
more.
Sherrington, are you for the motion?
I am for the motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sylvester.
For.
Councillor Thomas. Councillor Zaman.
For.
Councillor Bagnall.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor McGinn.
For.
Councillor Newell.
For.
Councillor Vevers.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
For.
Councillor Flitcroft.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Sanders.
For the motion.
Councillor Weatherby.
For.
Councillor Darvish.
For.
Councillor Ishmael.
For.
Councillor McMulkin.
For.
Councillor Allen.
For.
Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Councillor Parkinson.
Against.
Councillor Brady.
Against.
Councillor Wright.
Against.
Councillor Gibbon.
Against.
Councillor Hornby.
For.
Councillor Bullock.
Against.
Councillor Heslop.
For.
1 second.
Chief
Okay,
Executive, can I just make a point of order as a comment? I don't believe Councillor Iqbal is on the call, and he's certainly not listed in the list, and I'm fearful that somebody's voted for him. I know it won't make much difference to the result, but
can I interject, Leader?
Yes.
Mrs. Ridge has got some information for you.
Oh, right. I apologise if that's okay. I'm only looking at the participants list.
Yeah, sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Iqbal was having trouble getting into the meeting, so he has actually dialed in and he took himself off mute and voted.
Then my apologies. I was looking at the participants list, so my apologies.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The motion is carried. Madam Mayor, that concludes the business of the council. The council will now move into a short, I emphasise short, informal meeting. So the live stream will stop and then the meeting will go into the informal process. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hang on.